Councilman Clark, Councilman Davis, and Councilman Harvey. I know that Highway 58 has seen some pretty significant changes, and as we looked at valuations, Councilman Clark was one who said, gosh, it sure be nice to, maybe, I don't remember, never mind. I don't remember who asked that you be here, but it was a consensus that it would be fantastic for you just to come and talk us through how y'all get to the assessments and.
Sure.
And I think, let me interject, I think your question, the best I could remember, was like why your district had seen so much increase in valuations as opposed to the district right next to it.
Sure.
So I think
And
that's
I
probably.
can kick off the context for that, just to kind of get us started. Thank you, Chairwoman Hill and Chairwoman Dotley. Thank you, Marty, and your office for being here. But we did a really good kind of deep dive of just kind of getting a general education for some of us newer council people about just how the taxation works and certified tax rate. And it was really good. Our team did an excellent job, and Chairwoman Hill is also a really good subject matter expert in some of the housing.
So question great, right?
Very helpful.
Here just a second ago. So.
Yeah.
Not sure why you need me. Jenny's got
Well,
Because you're the pro.
and really, one of the reasons that we would like for you to bring clarity, because if you look at some of the demographics specifically pertaining to my district,
Sure.
we had a 56% increase, percent of change from 2021 to 2025, and the surrounding districts, which is District 6, my sister, I call it my sister districts, Ron Elliott's district,
Sure.
mine and Jenny's, we saw a really disproportionate, which what I would describe, you may not describe it as that, but maybe you could speak to what we look at as a disproportionate percentage rate of change.
Sure, sure.
And really just kind of helping us understand our algorithm when people are asking us, well, how'd you come up with this? And why was it such a big hike in that 4-year period and not the previous 4-year period? So if you could just give us some education to arm us with information when we're looking at our districts and we see this disproportionate, and I think it's disproportionate compared to certain other areas. So, but that's the context, I think.
Okay. I'm going to step to the end of the table. We did not prepare a formal presentation because I wanted it to be more of a discussion to hear what y'all want, questions that you had from us. Let me first introduce Donnie Bell. Donnie's been in the office for 13 years now. He was an appraiser in the mortgage business. Prior to that, he's got 25, 30 plus years. He's only 27, but he looks like he's worn out and battered and bruised. But as I've introduced him to folks, Donnie is one of the 4 or 5 most important people in my office. He's not a director, and that's a good thing for him because nobody reports to him. He just reports to me. So he's my eyes and ears on a lot of the questions that you're going to have, because one of his primary duties, what are you, senior appraisal analyst or specialist or something? We're not real good about titles in the assessor's office. We just give you tasks to do. But Donnie tracks all the sales for Hamilton County, residentially and commercially. Clearly, we have many more sales on the residential side than we do the commercial side, and we'll get into that as well, and then we'll get into the dreaded tangible personal property, which is your business assets. So let me do the kind of the civic group kind of introduction. Thank you for having us here from the assessor's office. Thank you for allowing me to serve. If you voted for me or you didn't vote for me, you're stuck with me until at least the end of August 2028. And the next reappraisal is January 1st of 2029. Predecessor Claude Ramsey may be the smartest public servant, no offense to anybody here that's served, but in his wisdom, when Hamilton County went to a 4-year reappraisal in 1989, they had the option in the mid-'80s. Claude said they were on a 10-year plan at that time. He said, you know what? I get elected in '88. We're going to set the reappraisal in '89, and it's been there ever since. So that's a joke in the office that Claude put it the year after his election in 1988. The assessor's office, and I did this the other day with a group I was with. If you ask people, the assessor of property is a constitutional office in county government. and there's one of me in every county across the state. Of the 95 counties, 21 counties were in reappraisal this year. Not everybody does it the same year. However, our friends in Williamson County, Davidson County, Shelby County, next door Bradley County, up on the plateau, some Overton County, a few of the others. Good morning.
Hey, Councilwoman Marlene.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay, it's not a problem.
My purse is making noise.
But not every county in Tennessee is on a 4-year plan. Of the 95 counties, only about 15 or 16, is that about right, Donnie? Something like that?
Pretty close,
Something
yeah.
pretty close. They're on a 4-year plan. Many of the counties are on a 5-year plan, and there are a scant handful, less than 10, that were on a 6-year plan. And I'm not sure any of those are still there. State law requires that each county have a reappraisal at a minimum of every 4, 5, or 6 years. And we've been on a 4-year plan, like I said, since 1989. There's a move across the state to go to more frequent reappraisals because of the historic increases that have happened in other counties. If you think it was bad here, and we don't live anywhere else, we don't answer to citizens anywhere else when it comes to this, except here in Hamilton County and in Chattanooga. Our friends in Overton County and Anderson County, what's Molly's? Roane County, they were upwards of 80-90%. Now that was a 5-year plan, but still it was double-digit increases over their period each year annually. The same thing we saw here in the county and in the city. So how do we arrive at numbers? Well, if I back up, I started with the constitutional officer. You ask folks what the sheriff does. Sheriff arrests those who break the law. If I ask people what the county clerk does, well, I renew my tag and title there. He does marriage license and many other things other than that. Keeps all the records for the county. If I ask what one of the court clerks does, people know what that is. When you ask, what does the assessor do? Well, he raises your taxes. That's yeah. I mean, I've been introduced for 9 years as the tax assessor. That's not what the title is. I've grown used to it. I still don't like it, but it comes with the territory, and I understand that. I've gotten better at accepting it as time has moved along. Just got reelected last year. 2024. Time moves fast. I'm in my 3rd term. Great staff. We have 38 employees. We have 185,000 parcels, roughly, in Hamilton County. Donnie can give you down to each one as to what the exact number is. I can't, but it's somewhere around 185,000 that we have to work with. The question that we get often when we started sending notices out, this has been my statement that I've made. I had a press conference, I don't know, a couple of weeks before we sent notices out. Ray, you were there that day, along with one TV station. Nobody paid attention. I was all jacked up. We were going to do this grand presentation about what was coming with these assessment notices and what the process was and all this. And our friends at the Times Free Press, and I think maybe Channel 12, I can't remember for sure, were the ones that showed up that day. That's fine. When we talked about the lower certified tax rate for the county, there were about 50 people there that day. So, when you talk about the tax rate and what dollars and cents mean, that's when folks started paying attention in a more serious way. Where do we get the numbers? That's the question. We had it all the time. Where do you get these numbers from? There's no way that my house is worth this much. There's not been any sales around me. And we have an app on our website. It's called Comper. But I think it says Home Value Review on the tab. If you go to our website, is that what it's called? Home Sales Comparison.
Home sales comparison.
Home Sales Comparison is the link on our website. You go in, you put your address in, and you have to work with it a little bit, but you can put the number of years. It'll go all the way back to 21. It'll show you the sales around your home from 21 through 2025. It'll show you what they're selling for today. And we're not doing anything with those sales right now. We're just charting them and watching them. We track them every year. Donnie, correct me if I give this an incorrect number since we have a large audience, but we're seeing about 4 or 5%, depending on what part of the city and or the county that you're in, values. The home sales this year already in 2025 over the value that we had set in January of this year. we are only allowed to use residential sales of properties that are similar to yours in age, size, and description. We don't go from Lookout Valley to East Brainerd to North Chattanooga to compare a home. We stay as close as we can within a neighborhood. Where it gets difficult is when we have new homes that are built in an existing neighborhood. That's a little tough. We take those outliers out. We take the top end, top 20, 30% on the top end as far as sales, and on the bottom 20% in a given neighborhood. It's not all defined where each neighborhood we have the same number. We stay at about 500, 600 homes in a given area. Obviously, we have more density in the city limits than we do across the county when you get out to Sale Creek, Birchwood, and it gets a little difficult out there to find what we would call a neighborhood. We call it a neighborhood code, but we list the neighborhoods. I think we have like 750. Do you know the number?
I don't know the exact number,
It's
but
somewhere
we've got
in there,
a lot of
700,
different-
750.
For delineation.
Yeah, across the county for delineation, as Donnie says. And our friends, when I say state, let me interrupt this real quick. When I say state, I'm not talking about the legislators or anybody in Nashville or the governor. We report to the comptroller's office. And within the comptroller's office, he's got several divisions. And one of the divisions that is strictly for assessors of property is Division of Property Assessments. And Donnie is in, good morning. Donnie's in contact with them, maybe not daily, but 2 or 3 times a week at least, over the sales coming in across the county. And I will do my very best to take my county hat off and put, well, I won't put, y'all wouldn't claim me, so I won't put a city hat on. I'll just leave it there. And before I go much further, since I mentioned Nashville, for those who may or may not know, the best part of my family is my wife, who is State Representative Esther Helton Haynes, if you know that name. Mr. Harvey, you should know that name, I would hope, but anyway.
She's my representative.
And for better or worse, her son, it's fun to say stepson. I like to say that in public about Commissioner Helton, but Lee Helton is her son, and he is my friend as well. And so, yes, we meet on a regular basis about 3 times a week to discuss, and this is off the record, to plot the course of county government as to what's going to happen on the county side. I mean, we are it. If folks only knew how limited our conversations were about government and what we do, it'd be comical. There wouldn't be much to talk about. Chip's taking notes now and sending them to us. So
Don't get us sued, please.
yeah, we get sued. We don't get sued. We're involved in there is a process to appeal your value. We just went through that. It's a county board of equalization. You have 2 appointees who did a really good job this year. The county has 3. They're appointed by the mayor, each mayor, and then approved by the legislative body for either the city or the county. It's a thankless job. The grand, I think it's $75 a day is what they get paid. And maybe the chair gets $85 a day. So if you know somebody looking to make a lot of money next June, call us or nominate them and put them in, because we will have to nominate folks to serve on that board again next year. But it is about the same thing. People do have the option to appeal our values, and I had some of the folks in the office come up with some numbers for us to talk about today. Let me stop real quick and answer any brief initial questions, and then we can try not to chase rabbits too far, and I'll go into some of the numbers that I have prepared. Yes, ma'am.
And how you doing?
I'm good.
I'm Rakita. I'm
Yeah.
sorry I was a little late.
That's all right.
I appreciate you coming in this morning.
Hey, I was on time. I want that duly noted. I was on time.
You were.
For once.
You were.
If it was a county meeting, I would have been late. No doubt, no doubt.
But I'm glad you love us more, so we appreciate you
Yeah,
for
sure.
that.
And we understand.
We understand, yes. And so as Mr. Haynes has stopped and asked, are there any questions at the current moment for him regarding information he's already shared?
I can go back to this
Okay.
discussion we had before I stood up.
Okay, so we
Sure.
got Councilman Clark, followed by Councilman Harvey, and then I have a question as well.
Okay.
Chairwoman Dolly, I've already asked a question, so I'll yield to my colleague,
Okay.
Cody Harvey.
Councilman Harvey?
Marty, when somebody questions their reappraisal, how do you all go about doing that? Do you look at the specific property
Sure.
and then how does that work?
So what we do, the way each assessor's office across the state, it is a term called mass appraisal. We do not, as I introduced Donnie, he was a mortgage appraiser for 10 or 15 years,
12,
whatever it was.
about 12.
Yeah, 12. So they're doing each home individually around the comparative homes, wherever the subject property is. For those type loans or appraisals, they typically go 6 months, in the current neighborhood, and then they spread out further. That's not the way mass appraisal is. You stay within your neighborhood and you drill down deeper. So you're taking sales from 21 all the way through 2024. And as we went through this last 4-year period, it was a roughly 15% increase in value every year, depending on where you were in the county. Some was more, some was less, but that was about the same. So when folks call us, then we do more similar to what the mortgage people do, and we do an individual appraisal, and we try to compare, because each home is different. There is something unique about every home in Hamilton County. We have roughly, out of the 185,000 properties, we have roughly 140,000 residential properties. We've got about 10,000 vacant lots. We've got another, 86 or 8,700, it's more like 75 or 7,600 commercial properties. Now, this is countywide, and about 1,000 industrial properties. Then you have exempt properties, which would be this building, any school, any church, or any other organization that meets the exemption standards for the state. That's about 42 or 4,300, something like that, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And then we have what is known as agriculture. It's green belt, and there are some within city limits. And green belt is a term that the state came up when we were mostly an agriculture state. And anything that's over 15 acres, you apply for green belt, and you have to either be a full functioning farm, or and a farm growing a product can include trees. There's a lot. Most are on what we call a forest plan, and that's we could take a deep dive into that, but there are about 23 or about 4,300 of those. No, 4,300 exempt properties, and about 22 or 2,300 of exempt green belt or agriculture properties. Interesting.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And you have the option, each property owner has the option to appeal every year. Now, we had a bunch of folks this year, so let's back up just a little bit and go deeper on Cody's question. Councilman Harvey, I apologize for not being informed. You earned that title, so. So out of the 150,000 residential properties, and we sent those out first, we sent those out in different groups, and I don't remember which parts of the city went out at what times. We probably got 15,000 to 18,000 either phone calls or emails from property owners. Hey, what is this? It says call, so they would call. And that's okay. We want people to call. When I talked to Mayor Wamp about that, he's like, oh my gosh, you're getting killed. I said, no, the more people we can talk to and explain what this process is, and it's difficult, it's not hard, there are just a lot of layers. That's what I tell people. I went to Hickson High School. I'm not that smart. Out of a graduating class of 388, I was about number 288. So anybody can learn to do this. You just got to be patient and listen to the folks around you that have more experience. But that's what we told folks. Out of that 15 to 18,000, I think it was actually 15,000. Closer to that was the actual number. Those were what we called informal reviews. Out of that informal review, then we go in and we send them a notice. Hey, you know what? We did review it. We were either high or no, we're right. Or in some cases, we did need to lower it a little bit, and so we didn't raise anybody's. Once we set a value, we can't arbitrarily raise it. We can lower it if we find a reason. We can raise it, but that's usually not good practice to go back and raise it after somebody asks you to look at it. So we don't do that. From that 15,000, it boiled down to, I think it was about 8,000 requests for applications to go to the County Board of Equalization. So now we're getting a little bit deeper dive again, so about half of the informals. From that, it turned out we had about 250 folks that actually went to the County Board of Equalization that we couldn't find some common area. Hey, you know what? We needed to lower it, or no, we are correct, and here's our value, and here's why. And we had a lot of, our folks, the appraisers, residential folks in my office, they had a long 10 weeks where they were putting in long hours, 5 days a week, Saturdays a whole bit, but they knew it was coming, they signed up for it, so no sympathy there for them. And then we wound up with about 300 or so that went to the county board, as we call it. And, you know, there were a few commercial properties in there, but not very many, some local ones. We still do not have all the numbers for commercial properties. You can request in this year, in a reappraisal year, because we have so many, everybody gets a new value. So we send things out. The commercial folks have the option to go to the next level to bypass county board, and they go to what is known as an administrative law judge. Those are appointed by the Secretary of State. At this point, we had about 950 of those folks request an application to go to the ALJ, which doesn't mean they will be heard this year. That's a whole nother story. To date, we've got about 280 of those back in. Now, the deadline is a week. What day is today? 22nd? Yeah, so next Friday, August 1st. I was trying to remember which week I was in. August 1st is the deadline, and we'll get pretty close to that. We won't get all 900. Some will not send them in, and some will withdraw or whatever. So that number's still to be determined. And of that 282, 242 are within the city limits. Our friends that are the big box stores, I'll try not to name any of them by name. If I do, I do. I mean, they're public companies. They appeal every year, without question. I mean, and we won't get those settled this year. They do have to pay their taxes in full. They don't get a free ride on that. They do have to pay in order to appeal. There's just, think of it this way. You have the volume of Hamilton County, and compared to Davidson and Shelby County, I tell folks all the time, you know, they're the major leagues. Those two counties are so much different than every other county in Tennessee. And then you lump in the Hamiltons, Knox, Williamson counties, Rutherford counties, Montgomery County, Sevier County, and a few others. We're kind of in that next group. But the big two, and they'll have their boards of equalization meet year round. That's how many appeals they have. And so they have, it's completely different over there in those two. But a lot of those still go to what's known as the ALJ. And so that system gets overloaded this year, and it'll be next year, and then they'll ask for an extension, and it'll go to the third year. And that's a whole nother, there's a reason, and I'm sure we'll get to that sometime this morning.
All right, so just in the effort to get us to our next presentation.
Yeah.
So we'll give about 10 more minutes if you have it, and then we'll let you wrap it on up. And I know I have
Well, they told me I had 2 hours.
They done
I
told
had to be
me.
here all
Told
day.
you a story.
Whoever they is.
Right, they told you a story, and I apologize for that.
No, that's okay.
But no,
That's
it's
okay.
but we appreciate all the good information.
Yeah.
I saw Councilman Henderson had a question, and we're gonna ask my question real fast.
Yeah, go ahead.
In developing neighborhoods, so I have a lot of neighborhoods, specifically Alton Park, that has a couple of developments coming in.
Right.
And the question I get is, when does those new homes begin to impact the tax value of the ones that are already there? Is it when the property is purchased? Is it when development goes up, or is it when they get their certificate of occupancy?
Yeah, so it goes on the tax roll when you actually do a really good job with codes and building enforcement here from the city. We get your certificates, and we get permits first as for new construction, and then the certificates that come through. When we get a permit, it'll be 6 weeks or so before we go out to check on it, make sure, see if the foundation's been poured, all that sort of stuff that broke ground. And then we know the time frame of, depending on who the builder is, how long it's gonna take, and we get it on. Those new homes are considered growth. So so you want those. You want new homes, you want new construction coming in. That's growth that obviously leads into everything that we're looking for. We want to continue to grow in the city and as well across the county. So when you're certified, that's a great lead into the next thing about the certified tax rate. So the new tax rates you got, and I know y'all are facing a decision with that. You have the same revenue coming in each year, so that new construction adds in each year as you go forward. That's what you want. That new construction, if it started, is not added in. If it started January this year, if it gets added in, it was not included in that certified tax rate number. So it's above. Those values are above. And here's one thing that is often not understood. We can't chase sales. Anybody besides Donnie know what that means? So here's the big example, and then I'll give you some small examples. And I'm not picking on the folks at Marshall Mize Ford out in my home of Hickson, my hometown. Marshall Mize Ford sold for 9-point-something million this year. I think it was 9.5 or something. I don't remember the exact numbers. Our value in January of this year was like 6.8 million. Guess what? We don't get to add that $9.5 million sale into 2025. We just got to wait for 4 years. Now, we don't know, have we got all the details on that sale yet? Do we know if it included any inventory or anything? So that one's that's a little different, but that's a high-end sale. I want to explain to you that if that's just the land and the building, we don't get to go get that until 2029 in that next reappraisal. We can't chase a sale. Same thing on residential. If wherever you live in the city limits, if a home, or in the county for that matter, let's say we had a home for $350,000 on January 1st of this year. Somebody's already bought it in 2025 and paid $375,000. Guess what? It stays at $350 until you get all the way out to 2029. So you will never, in a 4-year plan, you will never, the city, the county, Saudi Daisy, it doesn't matter where you are, you will never get all the growth in a 4-year plan. It is not possible because you're always chasing sales. Yes, ma'am.
I think the question really was thinking about a constituent. So if I live in a home that's valued at $200,000 and Chairwoman Dotley purchases a home for $400,000, I will see that my assessment change at the 4-year cycle. That is when my assessment will change.
That's when it will change. Yeah, it won't change just because we are not allowed to change values between January 1st of 2025 and December 31st of 2028 unless you make a physical change to the property. You add a deck or a garage or an auxiliary dwelling unit or whatever it may be. Your value is set for the next 4 years unless you make a change. So those new sales coming in, even if it's new homes or existing homes, do not impact the 2025 value.
All right, thank you so much, and I
Sure.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Councilman Henderson, followed by Councilman Clark, and thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
So you asked first.
I'm going last.
He's already.
The first shall be last. That's somewhere in the Bible.
That's
Somewhere in the
right.
Bible.
Yeah, that's
First shall
Hey,
be
it's
last.
a good one, so you better be ready.
Right. And then we'll wrap it up with Councilman Clark's question as
Okay.
we do have, I believe, I don't know if police is first, CPD first, so we have a presentation from the Chattanooga Police
Okay.
Department.
All right.
So you were starting to touch a little bit on my question. Apart from reappraisals, which we know that the reappraisals, just because value goes up, we can't capture more dollars
Right.
unless we raise the tax rate.
Right. Outside of new construction.
Yeah. What doesn't make sense to me is as much growth as we're seeing in this city. What happens to all of our growth dollars?
Yeah. So let me, I did spend just a few minutes in your budget last night. So this is a great question. Ellis is gonna love this because he and I've had this discussion plenty of times. So, and I've got some information I'm gonna email to y'all. It was just way too much to cover with 9 districts. So, when you get on your budget page, and it's on B3 as I found it last night, and when you get to property taxes, you list property tax current, you have actual fiscal year 24 budget, fiscal year 25, projected through the end of 25, city proposed 2026. So here, that's the first line. That is what we call real property. That is homes, businesses, industry, whatever the case may be. That next line, when you get to B3 and you look at personalty tax, that is tangible personal property. It's the worst name in the world for anything when it comes to taxes. It's not about personal. It is business assets. Any businesses owners in here, you have to file that report every year. If you file it on time, first year, second year, good deal. Third year, you file on time, you get a discount. You get a built-in discount right off the top just for filing on time. Personal property, the number when I took office in 2017 was about 11 or 12,000 accounts. It's countywide. I don't have the numbers. You know, we county people, I only think one. If I start thinking 2 ways, I'll really be lost. I've adjusted Hickson and East Ridge, and I still can't get the 2 straight. So anyway, but if you look, I don't have it all the way back to 2021, I can get this for you. That number would have been about the same, but the number of business personal property accounts across the county has increased from about 11 or 12,000 to almost 19,000. But yet,
During that,
during an 8-year period, 17 to 25,
Okay.
January 1st of 17 through 2025. But it's gone up it's gone up faster than the number of homes being built.
okay.
You know, it's about $13 million to y'all.
This is
And I realize I know y'all are in a time crunch here, and I'm trying to make this as quick as possible. That number should be going up way more than what it is. But here's what happens in years 3 and 4. You get a thing called Ellis? Equalization. What was your statement earlier? It was a great statement.
You remember where you were when the Challenger exploded, when 9/11 happened, and when you learned about equalization?
Yeah.
Oh, That's that big a deal.
And for some of us of a certain age, it's when Kennedy got shot. You know that
Yeah.
day too. So anyway, but yeah, you know,
Equalization is the most socialist principle we have in the state of Tennessee, is it not?
it
Among many other socialist principles.
yeah. Not in this case because it extends to residential folks, but so where the equalization number comes from, and for the city and county in calendar years 23 and 24 budget years, 23 and 24, that number was 30%. So a business files their personal property report on time, tangible personal property report on time, they get a 30% discount on their taxes. Right off the top. Don't even ask about it. Then you get state assessed properties, which are railroads, hospitals, utility companies. When we think of utilities, we usually think of water. Think of Verizon, not to pick on think of cell phone companies. That's a big one. Cell phone towers fall into that as well, because there's a lot of ground leases that go with cell phone towers. So the county lost in the previous 2 budget years, $8 million a year. The city probably lost in excess of $6 million a year, probably closer to 7. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. I couldn't find it fast
Now you're
enough.
saying we're losing $6 million a year.
You didn't
because
lose it. You did.
Well,
Let me back up. You did not lose it. You did not realize the
We
gain.
didn't realize the gain.
You didn't realize the
because of
gain.
Equalization.
Equalization. Because those values go up in value every year. There is a depreciation on some, but you get a lot of new applicants every year on tangible personal
Which
property.
makes any and all economic
So,
development projects.
How do we fix that?
So how do we fix that?
Yeah.
That's,
Ellis, would you like to answer this question, or you want me to still be the most hated man in the county? And
2-year assessment cycles?
yeah, you do more frequent reappraisals. It's the only way you get around it. Here's the problem, and it's your problem, my problem, county commission's problem, and any other city commissioner anywhere across this county. You say we're going to do more frequent reappraisals, and based on your emails, phone calls, whatever, what's the number? Well, my taxes are going up. Of the 15,000 phone calls, emails we got, we're raising my taxes. No, the tax rate's got to come down. Tax rate's got to come down. We said that over and over and over. And after we explained it to enough people, they're like, oh. So it might go up a little bit. And the standard thing has been a third of the properties are going to go up. The taxes, they will pay more on taxes. A third will go down.
third will stay the same.
The third stays the same. Now that's third in the middle. Well, how can they stay the same if the median for the city was 51 or 2 or whatever the number was? I don't remember exactly off the top of my head.
36.
So whatever it was, 60. There are way too many numbers rattling around. So, but here's the example. My oldest son lives on Signal Mountain. His property went up 67%. He said, so what's this going to mean to me in taxes? And I said, well, I don't know. And he said, well, I know the tax rate comes down. And so I go through it and I said, a couple $100, what you're going to pay. He said, well, what am I worried about then? $200 to a dual income family on Signal Mountain, not that big a deal. A little widow lady in Red Bank or North Chattanooga or Alton Park or wherever,
Yeah.
Highway 58, if it's $180 or if it's $80, that's a big deal. If you're living on a fixed income from just taking Social Security, it's a big deal. So that middle third is very, very relative to a lot of folks. I mean,
So to capture that $6 million a year, we need to go, you're
Yeah.
saying, a 2-year reappraisal.
the only way to solve it,
Capture that.
is to go to a more frequent reappraisal. Our friends in Shelby County, Davidson County, Shelby's still thinking about going to a 2, or a 1. Davidson and Shelby are going to a 2. Williamson County's going to a 2. Knox County was in the middle of a 4, and they went to a 2-year plan. I mean, most of the counties that are on a 5-year plan, that ratio, it's called a ratio study. It kicks in years 3 and 4. If you're on a 5-year plan, you get it again in the 5th year. And it comes from the increased value of properties that have sold. It's the most unfair thing in the world. It really is.
So how do we make that switch? What's the process to go to
Well,
a 2-year cycle?
we have to collectively have strong minds, strong backbones, and the willingness to say we're going to do this every 2 years. And I say that that is the folks that are sitting at this table and our friends at the county commission, because it will be an onslaught.
So it's a dual vote, they vote, we vote?
Unfortunately, you do not have a vote.
Oh, so the county votes?
The county
So
votes on it,
county
and
needs
they
to
voted a
vote on
4-year
it,
plan. I
and
submitted a 4-year plan. I was going to be hard-headed, and I was going to do it.
County.
Pardon my French, come hell or high water. I was going to submit a 2-year plan, and I thought better of it, just because the backlash of phone calls coming in was overwhelming. I couldn't explain that at the time, Chair Lady, to why we're doing that. At the same time, trying to explain, in my mind, my feeble mind, the historic increases in value. I just didn't think, it wasn't anything about politics. It really wasn't. I mean, I have one more race to run in 28. Yeah,
It's just time.
I tried to kick that off last fall, and it just died. It didn't go anywhere. And so that's just that. We can revisit it, but you got to be prepared to take. I mean, it will not be fun. It's just not. But some of the counties out in West Tennessee, and I know I'm way over time, and I'm trying to be quick because we have another great question. We don't have anything else to do today.
Yes.
No, you don't. I know better. Donnie and I are going to Waffle House as soon as we finish here. So anyway,
You got a seat for 3?
yeah, come on.
All right, so Councilman
But
Clark?
some of the counties in West Tennessee, when this ratio has hit the last couple of years, they've had to go into their reserve fund to make their budget balance, because like any city, any local government, you got to have a balanced budget. So that's how serious it is across the state. And I'll be quiet.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, shut up, please.
That's okay.
Leave, old
It's
man.
all right.
I'll get out of
I
here.
get
So,
it.
yes, sir.
and then
Hey,
Councilman-
I'm sorry, what were you
Go
saying?
ahead, Councilman.
Okay, thank you again for coming.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And, this is probably a tough question. We're friends, so I know you can.
That's what you say in public.
That's why, no, that's what I'm saying it out. We are friends.
I'm just kidding.
And so I know you can handle this question, and it's a question that we discussed in our last hearing, because, we talk about equalization, but you have
Right.
districts like mine
Right.
that literally have to think about equity, and how we capture growth,
Yeah,
right?
right.
In every district, and how we
Right.
contribute to,
Right.
how our property values contribute to the fund or whatever.
Right.
In my district, politically, when I consider the impact of how we assess property value, and you're telling us that part of that algorithm is through sales.
It's the only algorithm. That's all
And
we
it's the
use.
only algorithm, and I guess really, I don't know how we mitigate the fact that when we see a disproportionate impact on certain demographic groups, certain medium incomes, in my district, it's a disproportionate impact
Yeah.
on African American females,
Right.
which is the predominant demographic group in my district, with a fixed income. And so when and I'm not sure
So
how to address that, but
Yeah.
I just want to be clear that, I don't know, is there equity in the appraisal process when we're considering the impact on people of different incomes, different demographics that's disproportionate as a percentage of change throughout the county? Like, how do you
Yeah.
address that?
So when we look at this, when we start looking at sales, and Donnie looked through it, over the last 4 years we had, this is countywide, so I apologize, but those are the numbers built in my head. We had 32,000 some odd residential sales the last 4 years. We had more than about 8,000 or 9,000 a year for the first 2 years, 21, 22. Is that about right, Donnie?
Yeah, it sounds about right, 'cause we
And
had
then we
about
went
72,
about 7,000 for the last couple of years. It's about 18,000 the first 2 years, about 7,000. So we saw the number of sales decrease. We saw the number of the value continue to increase.
Yeah.
And if you look at any of the real estate stuff going on now, and I'm trying to answer your question, it's a long.
Precisely.
We don't look at who owns the home. I can't, people call me and say, you know where I live? I said, No, unfortunately, I don't. I know where Chip lives, and, you know, that's about it. No. We don't know who lives, I mean, we have the name there, but I mean, there are so many numbers, there are so many parcels. We have the county broken down into 5 different residential areas. We're probably gonna add another one to add 6, just so we can get things a little closer. But what impacted sales and the increase in value was the value of the home more often than not. Donnie could probably, I will wrap up with this and not let Donnie, because he talks way more than I do. We won't go down this road. The lower valued homes, more of them sell because they're more affordable. Homes that were in 2021, let's say they were 150,000, they were probably selling for 275, 280, up to $300,000 or more, because those are the most affordable for people to buy. People that want to buy homes for an investment purpose, that they want to rent out, those are the homes they go buy, because you can rent those easier and faster. The higher valued homes, we have fewer sales. Depends on where they are, if they're on the water, or, you know, it just, Southcrest, wherever it may be, Missionary Ridge, sometimes you see some different sales. So value drives that more than race or anything else. It's the value of the home. Available homes in a certain price range will drive the value more than anything else, and the number of homes that are being sold. One thing that we're seeing right now, townhomes seem to be a push right now. There seem to be a lot of townhomes for whatever reason. I don't know whether it's folks in my age group that are, you know, wanting to downsize a little bit. We don't know what's driving that. We are not folks that we study the market as to what the sales are. Who's buying, we don't know. I mean, we just don't know.
So basically, when I see this 56% percent change,
Right.
you're telling me that in my district, that what's driving that are the amount of sales.
Yeah, and I'll email this. I'll figure out where I need to email it and get it distributed to y'all.
Send it to our clerk.
Okay,
Send it to our clerk, she can distribute it to you.
okay. Is that who sent me the invitation to come?
Nicole, should be Nicole.
Yeah. Okay, I will send that to her, because we broke stuff down for each district, rather than go through all this in paperwork. And Donnie's getting all his out now, so we definitely better go. It will be more explanatory, because what we have is the 2021 value and what it is in 2025, and the number of sales in your district for each district. We know what the sales are, and we can tell you which home sold if we dive into it deep enough. Right now, what you need to know from the assessor's office is it is all hands on deck for picking up new homes, new construction. I mean, they're leaving out at 7:15 in the morning, coming back at 4:30, 4:45. They're working to pick up all the new construction we can. We have a cutoff date that we will send everything to the treasurer somewhere. They'll get it somewhere around September 1st. We have to cut things off, and then we have to double check all the numbers. So we'll get all that numbers in any new construction that's coming in. Some of it will be partial year, not a full year, but you'll get that in whatever next year is, 26. So anyway, I apologize for being long-winded, but thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate you for coming in.
I'm gonna leave, anybody that wants these, if not, you can throw them away. But it's got my mobile number and my email. If y'all think of questions for me in particular,
Thank you,
y'all
Marty.
can,
Thank you.
y'all can do
Marty, I'll
with what
tell
you.
we've been having conversations as council people with our districts
Yeah.
about a preference for a large percent increase in tax versus a periodic, an
Yeah.
annual increase. And so overwhelmingly, our constituents are saying they prefer like a small 3% increase each year to a 12%
Sure.
every 4.
Well, I mean, our
So
homeowners
just-
insurance goes up, and we're
But I
used to
just think
that.
as you consider the backbone and the leadership question about bringing that to your reappraisal, I think it tracks with what people who are in a mind of thinking,
Right.
not in a mind of fear,
Right,
are,
yeah. And
prefer.
Yeah,
So-
and it should be done. I mean, I will unequivocally say we should go to a 2-year reappraisal. To be honest, it would be difficult for us to make a quick jump from 4 years to 1 year, but you should be on a 2 years for a couple of years and then go to a 1 year. That's really what
Thank you.
Marty, is it fair to say that the comptroller would be willing to come down? Council has additional questions
Oh,
about that.
comptroller would love to come down. I'll volunteer his services to come down. So, anyway, all right. Thank you, folks.
Thank y'all so much, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Sorry for being long-winded.
That's all right, we appreciate you. We appreciate you coming. All right, so I will turn it over to Kevin, and council, I hope your questions were answered. If not, email Marta Hangler with all the questions and Donnie Bell. But I'll make sure that you all get a copy of the present. Donnie did leave us some appraisal information starting from 2006, as well as the percentage change also starting from 2007. So I'll make sure that y'all get a copy of this and also their cards and stuff. Chief, good morning.
Good morning. It's okay if I stand down there?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I won't crowd you too much.
Now, Chief, me knowing you, I hope your presentation isn't as lengthy as our previous presenter.
You know I can't make
Now,
promises.
me knowing you. So go ahead, but we're excited to hear about what you got.
Yes, ma'am. First, thank you all so much for the opportunity to be here. And I will do my best to be as succinct as possible. I'm going to go into our budget, and this should be working. Well, it worked 2 seconds ago.
Okay.
I can run it for you.
Yeah,
What?
there we go. No, is that you or me?
I don't think it was me. Try it again. Maybe it was.
Is that distance? That's frustrating. Yes, sir, will you run it for me?
I will.
I have control issues, so now I'm going to be off the game. All right, go ahead to the next one, sir. We're going to get straight into the overall budget, so go ahead with the next one. So, as you all know, we have a very expensive budget for CPD. We are looking at a 2.21% reduction in FY26 compared to FY25. We have 78.45% of that budget is personnel, with the remaining 21% being operations. So that's everything else outside of people. So we're going to start with people. We're going to talk about our sworn as well as our professional staff. So we have 477 sworn police officers. That's all police officer positions. So that's police officer, cadet, police officer, master police officer, our sergeants, lieutenants, captains, and chiefs. And the men and women who actually do the work in the field, the men and women that are responding to the members of our community that need us, that's the police officers, the master police officers, and the sergeants, which makes up 93% of that 477. The vast majority are the cops and the first line supervisors that are out there in the field that are responding to the needs of our community, as well as following up and investigating crimes when serious crimes happen in our community. 7% of that is leadership. So that's your lieutenants, captains, and chiefs. And that's it. That's where that 7% comes from. So we have 21 lieutenants, we have 7 captains, and 6 chiefs. And as you all know, part of what I did at the end of last year was create the Chiefs Leadership Council, and the first thing we did was look at our organizational structure and to see where can we potentially save. My opinion, I felt we were a bit top-heavy, but I wanted to include other perspectives, and we all agreed that we were. So with that, my cost center, the Chiefs cost center, where we had additional appointees, we cut that by 27% because we eliminated 4 of the highest ranking and highest paid positions that were within CPD. We reallocated those positions to a middle management position where we were able to create a lieutenant over officer wellness. We put a lieutenant to cover essentially Councilman Henderson's district, so that there was an individual lieutenant assigned to Adams South, which also gave us the ability to have an individual lieutenant assigned to Adams Central, the immediate downtown area, whereas before that was shared responsibilities. And we also added 2 lieutenants to our watch commander, where previously that was a rotating assignment where there was nearly zero accountability or buy-in from the leadership because it was a different person every single night. Now we have 2 lieutenants that are dedicated, and that has proven to be much more effective. It provides a service to our officers as well as having leadership in the field immediately on the scene when a crisis happens, just like last night. And then appointed position raises. In FY '26, all appointees, all appointed positions within the city received a 3% pay raise. You all know me, and I know some of you all better than others, but you all know that I'm very serious about my position and my responsibilities. As soon as I learned about the 3% raise, I made one phone call to Kevin Roig and said, I will not take this pay raise. I will not. It is not appropriate. I will not take it. He obliged and understood, and I am not taking a raise for FY '26. Will not. Refuse it. It is more important to me that I can save every penny that I can so that our officers that are actually out there, that 93% that are actually out there doing the work, they're the ones who deserve that. I would also like to let you guys know that my other chiefs came to me and wanted to do the same thing, and I refused to let them. And the reason why is we cannot create a situation where we have compression issues, right? There is no doubt that the expectations that I have of those chiefs, our current chiefs, are much higher than any other expectations that have ever been placed on those positions. They are responsive. They are in the field. Chief Jones worked watch commander on a Friday night. He was the watch commander on Friday night to give that leader an opportunity to take a break. So he was working all night long out there, and that's happened for multiple of us. That is the expectation, that we are in the field, in there with our community when they need us the most, backing up our cops when they're out there doing the work. That is exactly what we do. The other side is we have 121 professional staff, and that incorporates multiple positions. This is the bulk of those. So crisis co-responders. That's something that obviously you guys are familiar with. It has been very effective, right? In both service of the community as well as within our agency to make us more effective so officers don't have to spend hours and hours on mental health calls, that we're able to have a professional on scene immediately. This position, or this category, has grown over the last few years, and we hope to continue to grow that, which means we're adding a position to that each year. Victim service advocates, that's another area where it is extremely valuable to our community to be able to have very knowledgeable victim service advocates who are not just trained but also educated in ways to serve our victims. So they have access to funding as well as just the knowledge base to be able to reach out to our victims, especially those victims and victims' families of violent crimes. Multiple technicians, so we have technicians for property technicians, we have information center technicians, we have as well as maintenance technicians that work in various jobs throughout the department that are vital to our success. Crime scene investigators, we now are actually increasing that due to a bit of a conflict between sworn and our non-sworn counterparts doing, essentially having the exact same job responsibilities with different compensation plans, different benefit plans. We were informed last year that had to change because that presents liability issues from an employee law perspective. So we're working to offset that as well. School patrol, human resources, and administrative assistance. That's the bulk of those categories for our professional staff members. And with that number has been up and down. In 2014, there was 124. Right now, as I stated, we were at 121. So in operations, operations makes up that 21% or $19 million of the remaining budget outside of human beings. Let's go into that. So broken this down into the categories that you all will have seen already in our budget outlay. So of that $19 million, $12.8 million makes up services, right? And I'm going to go from top to bottom, most expensive to least within services. The first is $6.4 million to Hamilton County 911, which is a 6.72% increase over FY25. I'm sure you're wondering, what is that increase for? That increase is for their pay raises for their employees. That is a cost that we don't get to negotiate. Essentially, that is a pass-through where we have a service that we need. Almost every agency in Hamilton County, to include fire, EMS, and police, all are dispatched by 911. And the dollar amount that we're charged is all based on the number of calls for service. And as you might expect, ours is astronomically high compared to every other agency inside Hamilton County. Pales in comparison. The next line item is McCamey Animal Service, which is a 5% increase over last year. That's $2.2 million. Again, that's a pass-through. We have no input into what that looks like, or where that money is spent, or how it goes, or anything like that. I have no qualms if we want to figure out something else to do with them and give me that $2.2 million to go towards this. All about it. Have no problem. Something to consider too, the $6.4 million with 911. Here's what that would look like if we said, okay, we're not going to pay Hamilton County 911. We would have to establish our own dispatch center. That's a requirement. Our community members have to have the ability to call the police. We did when I first came here in 1995. We actually had our own dispatch center. Essentially, when you have your own silo dispatch centers, one, you don't get countywide information when there's other things going on. The other side of that is it is very expensive to establish your own relative to technology, additional human beings, which, as you all know, is the most expensive part of our budget. So now you're looking at establishing a whole nother city department and then implementing the infrastructure, the location, and then hiring and training the personnel. It is not cost effective to move away from the model that we're currently at. We don't have input into what that looks like. They're facing similar recruitment and retention concerns that both fire and police are as well. $1.4 million is for our body cameras and in-car cameras. We are entering into the final year of a multi-year contract, which means that dollar amount will be going up. Technology is always increasing in capability, therefore it also increases in price, the overall cost of it. I will say that I don't believe anyone in here would suggest that not having body cameras is an option for us. I would never advocate for that. It protects our community. It also protects our officers. That's something that has proven to be a significant asset to the city of Chattanooga at large. Again, that's a cost that I feel like that there's not wiggle room there. The company that we use is the best in the country. It is absolutely what we decided to go with many years ago and has proven to be a good decision ever since.
Hey Chief, sorry to interrupt, but I do want to just connect the dots. The 1.4 from last week came up because it was a technology item that was highlighted in CPD's budget. That's what this is.
Okay.
It's labeled as like IT service or IT maintenance or something like that, but that's what that is. Yes, sir. So that's body cameras, all body cameras for police officers, as well as our in-car cameras, right? So there's backseat cameras, you have the front windshield camera, and then also the storage, right? We have retention laws given our government entity, and we have to retain evidence in that capacity for X number of years. I believe it's 99 years, if I'm not mistaken. Phil knows that. Phil. So next up is utilities. So we have the main service center, which half of that is, or 3/4 of that is ours. The other part is we split with Hamilton County 911, where we pay half, they pay half. So the larger part of that building and the older part, more expensive part of that building is CPD's. The newer portion that was built in the 90s, that portion is split. So all utilities across the board. We also have the annex, which encompasses our crime scene lab, as well as our property division, as well as narcotics and our gun team. And then we have the precinct. The precinct, you all know, on 11th Street, that requires routine and regular maintenance, as well as the range. So the range is also part of that utilities. It's minimal on the utility side, but that still goes into the overall cost. So that's where the $900,000 comes from in utilities. Next is repairs, janitorial service, and then maintenance services. So that's $852,000. I'll tell you all that something that I learned, I never dreamed that becoming a chief of police also, you have to learn all things HVAC. So the service center, especially the section of the building we're in, there are 43 HVAC units on the roof of that building, 43. 26 of that 43 were purchased in 1995 and 1996. Excluding this summer, because I made it our mission to make sure that it doesn't happen again. The last 2 summers, our cops have not been able to come into the building because our air has been down the last 2 summers in a row. And we made a point not to. So when we did the budget amendment earlier this past calendar year, $100,000 of that went to preemptively replacing some of those old worn out units. So that's where some of the repairs there also come from, is getting some of those replaced as well as continually trying to fix those. We do have a schedule in place to get more of those replaced. There's 8 being replaced right now. But we can't do it all at once. That's just too big of an ask at this point in time. So we will continue to use that line item to try to keep heat and air in the service center for our employees. $728,000 is the radio shop. Again, that is for these radios right here. These are very expensive. I would be lying if I said I knew the exact price. The last time I checked, it was around 10 grand a piece, between 8 and 10 grand a piece. So we have to pay maintenance on those, right? We have to pay maintenance anytime they're broken or anything like that. That's where the $728,000, again, that's a pass-through. That's to the radio shop. That is not a city entity, but we pay for their service to keep us up and running. And $320,000 is for testing. What that testing incorporates encompasses is our written testing as well as our psychological testing for new hires. So it's very difficult to become a police officer. You have to take a psychological test, not just the form itself, but then it also has to be reviewed and you go over it with a clinical psychologist. That is mandatory. And then we also have written testing that is performed for each candidate. Additionally, we have promotional testing. So that's where we have standardized assessment centers for promotion to ranks of Master Police Officer, Sergeant, Lieutenant, and Captain. Any question on the services side?
You didn't offer us an option to ask questions on the personnel.
I'm so sorry. Let's go back. Let's go back. Absolutely. I'm so sorry. There's more to the personnel too down the road, but
Well, which way you want to go? You want to go through all the slides and then do questions, or you want to go by slide?
totally up to you.
So we'll go by section and we'll
Okay.
see how it goes.
Okay.
So we can start, we'll do first, council personnel and operations. Any questions? That's out of Madam Chair, Councilwoman Burrs, Councilman Davis. All right, we'll start with Madam Chair, Councilwoman Burrs, and Councilman Davis.
Okay.
Welcome back, Councilman Davis.
Oh, thank you.
So, first, to get us started, and I said this to our sworn leaders before we even got started today, just to level set,
Mhm.
and I will only speak for myself, but I have a feeling that others feel similarly. I have tremendous respect for our police and fire. Our sworn personnel are primary function of why we even exist as a government. Our job, my job, is to be a fiduciary. I have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that money from taxpayers is being spent well. So my job is to ask questions and to peel apart layers.
Yes, ma'am.
And I want to be very clear that in asking questions, that is not a question of, are you doing a good job? I think all of us here need to feel completely comfortable to ask questions of our fire and police. You are approaching potentially $100 million budget. $100 million is a great sum of money.
Absolutely.
And I know you are a man of great integrity, and you would agree that strong fiscal oversight is a critical part of doing your job well as chief of police.
Absolutely.
And that Chief Hyman and our soon-to-be Chief Knowles would feel the same about the way that they operate the fire department, because that is the standard you all have set. So, that said, know that as I ask these questions, I'm doing so as a representative for District 2 and thinking about the city of Chattanooga as a whole and our fiscal health, as well as our public safety. So first question, we have, with regard to personnel, we have $30 million in our general fund budget for the fire and police pension. Is that represented in this, is that what this fringe benefit number is?
It's a total, so it encompasses all fringe benefits.
Okay, so it
all of the
encompasses-
insurance, yes ma'am, all insurance, pension, everything.
So Kevin or Weston, y'all can confirm that this represents the city contribution to benefits for all of our police department, as well as our city contribution for the police pension in this 30 million.
Yep, we'll confirm it.
Okay, thank you. Want to make sure that we've got a full picture there. That was my primary question at this point around personnel. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, okay, that's it?
For now.
Oh, okay.
On that
All
slide.
right, well, oh, okay. And then, Councilwoman Burrs, followed by Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Are we going by category? Is
Yeah,
that what we
personnel
decided?
and operations.
Okay,
For
so I
both,
have
since
just
you-
a
'cause you
operations
cover-
question.
I'm sorry, so because you cover both at this point, right?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, yeah, personnel and operations.
Okay, well then put me
So,
back on this, 'cause I didn't want to.
Hi, Chief, thank you for the presentation and for breaking it down. I don't know if this is a question for you or for Kevin. The 5% increase for McCamey, what is that for? What does that
We all trying to
constitute?
figure that out,
Yep.
Councilwoman Burke.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm sorry.
And Weston is not here this week, but we'll
Okay, so
follow up.
for the
and run that
afternoon, if we
down.
could just get an answer for
Yep.
that would be great. That is my question. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you for asking that, Councilman
Go
Burke.
ahead.
Councilman Davis, and then followed by Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So that $2 million reduction that you mentioned from this year to next year, could you explain what's included in that?
So my understanding on that is it's primarily to do with, I may need Mandy's help with this one because I had to understand it. What is the acronym?
OPEB.
OPEB. Does everybody, do you know what that is? Then you're probably better than me. 'Cause if I tried to explain it, I'd be like, it's not gonna make sense.
So, yeah, so you'll remember, and we talked about this at the time, that the reduction that we're showing here, those are exogenous variable costs for which we have no control. And so, the numbers that came in for this year were lower relative to what they were
Okay.
last year,
Right.
which is why there was a reduction.
Okay, got it.
OPEB is other post-employment benefits.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Councilman Davis. We'll circle back to Madam Chair Hill, followed by Councilwoman Burrs.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, sorry, I got mixed around with my other question, which is, you all have your own HR department or staff, HR staff?
Yes, ma'am, we do.
Within your department.
We did.
As I've studied your chain of command, your org chart, I'm not seeing a CFO. Talk to me about what kind of financial advisors you have on your team and how you craft your budget every year.
So we have a finance manager,
Okay?
and she's responsible for both purchasing as well as the overall budget. She's been in budget for many, many years with the city, when she came to us about 7 years ago. And essentially the manner in which we go through our budget is looking at actual costs from previous year as well as projected costs for current or future year. And then we go through that line item by line item as far as what was the expenditures, what was the need for that expenditure, and then what may be the need going into the next year.
But we also work closely with finance, so we have a monthly meeting with Weston, myself, and multiple members of the finance team, where the police department's finance team comes over and we sit down and we go line by line.
Okay. What I'm thinking through is the level of sophistication required to manage well what will become a $100 million budget. You may notice that I'm a little fixated on the reality that where we're headed.
Yes, ma'am.
And not dissimilar from some thinking that I have around our stormwater fund of, you know, we have this money, do we have the right project managers, for example, in place to be able to deploy that money?
Yes.
Do we have the strategic thinking on the financial side for this very large budget of essential services? That is a rhetorical question of something that I'm pondering, but good to understand that you do have a finance manager. That finance manager does not appear to be high in your org chart.
So
Where are they nested?
They are relatively, when you look at the reporting structure.
Okay.
So there's myself, then we have Deputy Chief Hewitt. His direct report over organizational development and support is a director. And then the finance manager reports directly to her.
So your finance person is 4 down in the chain
That is correct.
Okay.
From me. Yes, ma'am.
from you. Okay, all right, thank you very much, that's all.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair.
And I mean, we meet every Monday morning, 9 o'clock to go over it. I mean, it is a regular meeting, the 4 of us, myself, our director, as well as the manager and Chief Hewitt, right? We meet every Monday morning to go over everything that's been going on, past, current, future, to have those discussions, as well as the monthly meetings with Weston and the main team. And all of that is about accountability on both ways, right? are we being fiduciarily responsible with what we're doing? And I totally understand where you're going. You know, I totally understand, Chairwoman, exactly what you're saying about the size of our budget. We cannot lose sight of the fact that the reason our budget is that high. It has got nothing to do with this $1.5 million that's outside of vehicles and all these fixed services, right? It's got nothing to do with that right there. It's got everything to do with the human beings that we employ to be out there responding to our community. That is almost 80% of that budget. That is $69 million is what that is. And there are future slides where we're going to talk about what that really looks like too. And how does that compare to what the number of sworn we've had in the past compared to present.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Councilwoman Burrs.
You may be getting to this. I may be asking a question ahead of time. So, 477 current officers.
Yes, ma'am.
That's below where you should be, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what's the cap? Or where would you like to be?
Where I would like to be and what
Yeah.
I will demonstrate here in a minute is 509.
Okay.
But I'm not going to ask for that, and I'll explain that in the future slides.
So my question is for personnel, the number that you presented there, does that cover, let's say in a perfect world, you're able to get to up to 509, does that cover that?
Yes,
Okay.
but here's what I want to say, and I
Okay.
want to be clear, right?
Okay.
This will make more sense in a few slides.
Okay.
I'm not here asking for more cops. I'm not here asking for 500. That's where we were in 2021, was we had 500 assigned police officer positions. I'm not asking for that. What I'm asking for is the opportunity to be able to retain the 477 and let's all see what we can do with that, because we're not there. We're at about 401 on the streets right now. That's where we're at.
Okay, but you'd like to have 477 on the street?
I would like, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Give me an opportunity to see what I can do
Can
with that.
get to 477?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So we're budgeted for 477, but we have 401.
No, we actually have more than 401. We have 71, again, I'll get into this in a minute because this can be
I got
confusing.
ahead of time.
We have two separate pools of vacancies, okay? We have budgeted vacancies, which is 57. We have 57 budgeted vacancies. We have 71 operational vacancies. So out of the 477, we have 71 holes within our department that are actually working, right? The difference there are officers in training. It takes 10 months from the day we hire and the academy starts to the day that officer is on the streets by themselves, filling a district, responding to community members, okay? 10 months. So there's always going to be a gap between operational vacancies, the number of cops that we fill, and the number of cops that we're actually paying because of training. So 71 is what we feel. So just over 400 officers is what we're working with right now.
So just to clarify, because I think as we look at where we find the funding and if we're asking citizens to contribute to that, that the number that you are wanting to work with right now includes 57 budgeted officers that aren't out there yet, that aren't, that aren't out there yet. So as we're talking to people and saying, you know, this is going to allow the opportunity for the chief and leadership to get 57 more officers out in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
And we have a path for that, right?
Okay.
We didn't have a path for that this time last year, but we absolutely do today, and I have the facts to demonstrate that.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you so much, Councilwoman Burrs. Thank you so much, Chief, and you go on to your next section.
Let me try something.
Okay.
No, it's stealing. Wait a minute, is that you?
That was you on operations.
All right, maybe I have to hold it right here.
Okay, hold on, Chief, just a second. I
Okay.
had Councilman Harvey. I think I missed him.
Oh, I'm so
So I
sorry.
have an operations question.
Okay.
And I want to echo what Chairwoman Hill said. Please don't take any question
Yes, sir.
that I think you're doing a bad job. I think you guys are doing a tremendous job. Thank you for everything that you do. I've got several friends who are officers, and I think we have some of the best officers and police department in the country, really.
Yes.
So thank you. With that said, I do have a question, a number that concerned me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the mile radius that a police officer can drive their cruiser home 75 miles, is that correct?
That's what the EIG says, yes, sir.
Okay, as opposed to Hamilton County's 20.
Okay.
So is that something, is that a new thing, or is that something that we can look at? Because to me, I think that's a lot of maintenance, I think that's a lot of fuel. Tell me about.
So I'll tell you that prior to the EIG change, which was just a few months ago, it was 25 miles or inside Hamilton County. From the police service center to the top edge of Hamilton County is 27.5 miles. So even with the county's, radius on the take-home car thing, we were already above that, and we had not seen a significant increase. That 27.5, or I'm sorry, inside Hamilton County has been for a number of years. I believe about 3 years now is when we started that. And we have not seen a significant increase. I'm going to go into details about this right here, which is to your question, because I have concerns here. We have legitimate concerns here that we need to discuss, and that's exactly to that. We haven't had that in policy long enough, because right now we, I believe, have 2 officers. We have that actually applies to. One of them was a K-9, and he was already driving that distance anyway, because there's an exception for K-9 officers. So essentially we have one person that applies to. May we have more in the future? Probably. But there's not a way right now to provide a cost analysis on what that line item is actually costing us.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you so much, Councilman Harvey. Okay, Council, given that round of questions, we will let Chief Chambers finish the presentation and jot your questions down, and we will grab those at the end.
Okay.
Go
I'm going to spend a little bit of time right here on vehicle operations. So that includes everything to do with a motor vehicle, all of our police cars. So that's the lease program, that is tires, that is oil changes, that is fuel, everything to do crashes and replacements. All of that is $4.7 million. We have been overspent. I was overspent in this line item for over $1 million this year. Over $1 million. Well, why is that, Chief? Why are you overspent by $1 million in vehicles? Because it was cut by 50% in 2021. This line item for the Chattanooga Police Department was 50% greater 4 years ago. Well, let's think about what that reality was like then. The reality in 2021 was we were just barely coming out of COVID. There was a shortage of chips for cars, as well as a shortage in production and manufacture of the Ford Explorer, which is the cheaper of the SUVs that are available. Previously, we had multiple options, right? Ford had a couple options, Chevy had a couple options, Dodge had a couple options that break all the time, so Ford and Chevy were your options. Right now, the Ford Explorer is the cheaper of those options. Hamilton County uses a combination of the Chevys as well as the Fords. We're sticking with Ford because it will save every dollar we can. But why are we so overspent? We're overspent because we're underfunded. We're underfunded, and we continue to be. Because our reality today is we have more cops on the street than we did in 2021. We need more cars on the street than we did in 2021. So we didn't have access to cops. We also didn't have access to those vehicles, so the line item was cut. That's being fiduciarily responsible. I totally understand. Well, we're behind the curve because we've not added back to my line item. So I will explain. We will likely be overspent again because my option here is cops on foot, or I double or triple up in cars. And that is not what we need for our community. We don't need 3 cops riding in a police car to answer 1 call. That's not what we need. So this line item right here is something that we're working on. I've been meeting with Fleet as well as the mayor's office to see what are options here. Well, one of the things that was brought up was the potential for electric vehicles. Now, I want to level set. There is no reality where our men and women responding to calls are going to drive electric vehicles. That is not a proven concept at this point in time for first responders that are actually out there running emergency and the things that they do and what that looks like in an electric vehicle. But what about me? What about my command staff that aren't always out there running like that? In my conversations with Fleet, with Ken Howell, he mentioned that there may be opportunities for grants as well as innovation funds to run a pilot to see about for command staff, right? For the lieutenants, the captains, the chiefs, that what if those individuals that don't have every single thing in the car draining on those batteries that the normal officer does? Is that an option? So I said, you know what? I'll be the test. So we're working right now for me to test an electric vehicle for our command staff. Now, that's going to take some infrastructure work. And my commitment to that was as long as it's truly free, because I cannot add to that line item more than we're already doing. So it looks like we're able to implement one, and I'm going to be the guinea pig. I've got the Uber app just in case, so I can make sure I make it to work. There's legitimate concerns there. I don't own an electric vehicle, so I don't have any type of hookups at my house. So it's going to be strictly based on my vehicle sitting on the back lot. And I'm just going to do me. I've got to do my job, and I'm not going to change how I do my job because I have a different vehicle. And we're going to pilot that to see, is there an opportunity there? That's every opportunity I get, whether it's not taking a raise or trying a different type of vehicle, we're going to go down that path. We're going to see what can we do to try and save money, because this is something we have to contend with. What I do know is this time next year, we're going to have more cops on the street than we have had in decades. That's what I can tell you. And when that happens, we're going to need more vehicles on the streets than we've had in decades. So this line item is not going down. It is not going down, not this year. So hopefully we can find some solutions to this. But this is something where when you talk about the overages, right? So Chairwoman, you mentioned or you made a remark about the number of vacancies, right? Right. So we have 57 vacancies. That's the budgeted vacancies. What about those salaries? Well, that's how we funded that, because I was not over budget.
Right.
My operations was over budget, but I was able to fund all of that because of the vacancies and the actual conscious choice that I made to operate for about 8 months without other chiefs, without filling some of those more expensive positions. I did that on purpose. And I did that because I knew that there was something coming here, and we had to be very careful not to overspend, because I'm not going to be irresponsible with the money that you all give us. Any questions on the vehicle operations? You? Okay, I will just give it up. So that remaining 2%, so that $1.5 million, what does that look like? That's 2% of our overall budget. Most expensive is $599,000 for uniforms for police officers and ammunitions. This afternoon, you all will see a purchase request to assign a contract that's valued at $420,000 annually to GT Distributors. That's what's coming. That's what's on the agenda. That comes right out of that right there. So $599 minus the $420. We have about a $120,000 ammunition budget, which has gone down every single year. On top of it going down, ammo prices have gone up every single year. That's directly linked to our operational readiness. We can't send cops out on the streets without uniforms and without training, right? Without the ability to go in and train and meet state requirements as well as our own requirements, because we have a much higher standard at the Chattanooga Police Department than what the state requires. That requires us to be on the range. You do not want our cops out there and not to be proficient with the most deadly thing that they're given. The other is other expenses. That's actually a little higher. Sorry about that. $813,000. It is, but it's not. The reason why is because $760,000 of that is not ours. $760,000 was placed in here to pay for risk management, insurance liabilities, and on-the-job injuries. Can't touch that. That's got nothing to do with CPD. That's $760,000 of that $813,000, which actually leaves us $53,000. Of that $53,000 in other expenses, $43,000 of that is rent that we have to pay at the FJC. Thank you so much, sir. Now, we're required to be at the FJC. We weren't asked. It wasn't an option. We're required to be there. And I think for good reason. But we're also required to pay $43,000 rent every single year to be there.
And other places pay $1.
Yeah, that's what I was
Interesting.
I was just thinking that. Interesting indeed.
It's a deep dive.
The other $10,000, we use that for community outreach and sponsorship. So we sponsor Forgotten Child Fund, Special Olympics. There's multiple things. The Brave Effect, so we're running down recidivism. Be happy for all of you guys to come out and do a 5K with us. I've got Chief Hewitt. He's getting ready for it as well. We're going to come out in September and run a 5K, and that's running down recidivism, right? That's a nonprofit that works within the city, within our own communities, for people who are coming out of prison or out of jail that need a skill. Teach them computer skills, gives them clothing, sets them up for a job. These are things that we actively sponsor. These are 501c3 companies that we try to buy into to further our commitment to the community. $18,000 for training and travel. This incorporates mandated training. We have mandatory training. We also have training that is positions that require training for certifications. So all of our training instructors have to be certified to train our officers, as well as you're looking at the NFA. So NFA is the National Forensics Academy. That's at Knoxville. So anytime we have a crime scene tech, in order for them to go process a crime scene, they have to have that type of training, or their testimony doesn't hold up in court. So additionally, the International Association of Crime Analysts. So we have crime analysts. These are highly educated positions that have continuing credits, continuing education credits, that they have to retain it or have to obtain every single year to maintain their certifications. K-9, again, annual certifications. These are liability training segments that we are required to have every single year to ensure that we're covered and our officers are trained with industry standards. And then leadership development. So the FBI National Academy, Policing Leadership Academy, SELA, all of these different training academies to invest in developing the leaders of the future. And this starts at the sergeant level. So as soon as you get promoted and placed into a leadership position, we start investing in you. And we do that for a reason. We do that because we're not just trying to develop cops. We're trying to develop leaders. We're very successful at that. Who is our sheriff? He was a lieutenant for the Chattanooga Police Department, retired. The sheriff of Sequatchie County was a sergeant for the Chattanooga Police Department. The chief of Signal Mountain Police Department was the deputy chief of the Chattanooga Police Department. The COO for Hamilton County was the chief of police for the Chattanooga Police Department. I can go on. I want, but I think you understand the importance of us continuing to develop these leaders. That is what makes us the best law enforcement agency in this region. And I do not believe we need to take away from that. And then we have $77,000 for annual replacement of body armor, as well as broken office furniture replacements, software inventory, or inventory software.
Who's breaking the furniture?
I could share some photos.
What are y'all doing down there?
It's Chief because he's so pissed about his budget.
We were once Barney Miller.
We have furniture that has been around since the day I walked in the door. That was in 1995, when the first day I walked in the door, and that's not an exaggeration. We're working on that, and we have some capital funding that we reallocated into that. Up until this past spring, the office that I walked into in 1995 for my first assignment was the exact same. Nothing had changed. I mean, to the point of my picture with Julie Jacks on the wall. It had not changed. Okay? Well, thanks to Chief Hewitt's leadership and also us wanting to upgrade the working environments for our cops, not only are we working on the air conditioning, but then also we renovated some of those offices to expand some of those and make them more professional, right? We expect our cops to walk in and then go out in the community and be professional. They should come into a professional environment whenever they report to work. So that's what we're working on with that as well. Any questions on these?
Of course not, because we'll hold the questions to the end.
Yes, ma'am.
So just jot your questions down and we'll come back
Okay.
at the end.
Highlight them, so.
This is the end of operations. This is it. This is the remaining 2%, that remaining 1.5. So we want to ask, where are the cops? We have $69 million that we're paying. Now we know we're short, but why? What does that look like? What's the context behind that? So let's go backwards in time a little bit. In 2021, in order to fund the pay raises for fire and police, the police department alone attrited 25 positions. We went backwards from 500 sworn allocated positions to 425. Again, this was the onset of that struggle after COVID, right? Where we could not bring in full academies. Academies were single digits. 10 was a high number for us for a few years. So the decision was made to attrit those 25 positions. And we'll take those salary funds and we're going to help with the raises for fire and police. At the same time, we reduced our vehicle operations budget by 50%. So that's another few $1 million that helped fund those raises. But our reality is not today what it was in 2021. Kevin? So why don't I see cops in the valley on midnight shift? Why can't we put an officer at the end of Market Street Bridge and run radar?
Yeah.
Why can't we respond to all of the loud muffler calls in downtown? Well, with context, 25 years ago, Y2K, we remember that, right? A quarter century ago, we were budgeted for 477 sworn officers. But you know what the difference was? We actually had a waiting list. We had a waiting list for academies. We weren't running 71 operational vacancies in the year 2000. It took years, sometimes 2 to 3 years, to get hired by the Chattanooga Police Department because it was a competitive process. This is where we are today with fewer cops. In 25 years, I don't believe there's an argument that we've seen an increase in population, an increase in calls for help from our community, as well as an increase in crime. What I didn't put on here is the annexation, right? The increase in the actual geographic boundaries of our city that's also occurred in that same quarter century. Yet we're budgeted for the same number of cops today that we were then, 25 years ago. So now let's just go back 10 years. Let's go back to 2014 so we can compare one full year to another. So in 2014 we were budgeted for 486 sworn officers. And again, our reality was the same. We had waiting lists. It was a competitive process with 486 sworn. Since then, we've seen a 21% increase in calls for service. That's the number of times that we get called by the members of our community requesting help. 21%. So we're budgeted for fewer officers today than we were a decade ago. And we're requiring more of our cops every single day to respond to more calls. We have more vacancies, but we're managing. We're still answering that call. I mentioned before about the 71 operational vacancies and 57 true vacancies. That's felt. Our cops feel that. So how are we answering that call? You all saw our annual report. You know we've been down significantly, double digits in shootings and homicides. Double digits. That doesn't happen everywhere else. How are we doing that? Well, this is the real cost right here. We're doing that by working 26.2 hours of overtime on average every single day, 365 days a year. That's how we're meeting that call. So when we do put an officer running radar on Market Street, they're on overtime. That's how we're doing that. It's 9,561 and a quarter overtime hours per year. We spent over $2.2 million in overtime last year. Here's the real cost. Here's my concern as the chief. 69 officers were assaulted in the line of duty last year. 222 officers were involved in almost 2,000 mentally and physically taxing calls. So those are fights that the officers are involved in, homicides, shootings, especially those of children. Maybe the 15-year-old that was shot dead in the street last weekend. But guess what? Within 24 hours, we identified 3 suspects. One was in custody. The second one was taken into custody just the other day. And the real one here, 66 officers have used EAP services in the last year. That number is not going down.
What's EAP?
That's Employee Assistance Program, where officers are reaching out, whether it's mental health, whether it's substances. It runs the gamut.
So it's health, specifically health?
Mental health and physical health. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Not financial.
That's correct. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about attrition and retention. So these two charts show from 22 to present. This is our total sworn attrition. So this encompasses retirements, and I'm going to call these as known or expected and unexpected. Right? We expect that we're going to have a certain number of retirements every year, and there's going to be disciplinary actions that occur where officers are either terminated or resign in lieu of every single year. And then we also have the officers that are leaving to go somewhere else. They're leaving to go somewhere else, and the question is always, why are they leaving? This number is all of that, right? So we've seen an increase, especially in 2024, where we had 42 police officers in the city of Chattanooga leave in some way in 2024. We hired 31 that year. We hired 20 this year, and we hired about 19 this year. We have been upside down every single year. That's how we got where we are. Now, what I'm here to also demonstrate is when I was appointed here, things started to slow down. This is where we are to date, including through the end of July, because we have 2 more that have resigned at the end of this year. This is total. Less than half. We're slowing it down. This is the real target right here. This chart shows our unexpected attrition. Every single one of these numbers represent an officer who left to go somewhere else. It was not a retirement, was not a resignation due to any type of disciplinary or termination. Okay? These are the ones that we target. 21 of those in 2024 that left us. Now, in 2024, when I was appointed, this 21 was through the end of July. Whenever I was announced in August, from there to December, we lost 4. This is year to date, as of today, through the end. Now this 6, as you see, significantly lower. I am slowing down that attrition. We've not received a pay raise. There's hope of a pay raise, but we've not received one. The only thing that has changed is leadership. And this is where we are. Now this number 6 also encompasses 2. These 2 are new moms who decided that it was better for them to be at home with their children. Neither of them were really happy about it, but they understood where their priorities were, and I totally respect that. So truly, we've lost 4 to other agencies. That's Tennessee Highway Patrol and Pinellas County, Florida. That's where we've lost them. All 4 to those 2 agencies. Anybody want to take a gander at why? Pay. Every bit of it was pay. Each one of them sat before me and said, Chief, I don't want to leave. I really like what we're doing here, and I'm excited about where we're headed. But I can't turn down this opportunity. And every one of them I told, well, if that changes, you're welcome to come back, because they were all good officers, every single one of them. So what's the discrepancy, right? What is the context behind why does compensation matter relative to the workload? This right here are the agencies that operate within Hamilton County. So these are our direct competitors. We look at our starting salary. It's significantly lower than every other agency in Hamilton County, even the smallest. So your College Dales and Red Banks, smallest, make more than we do. Look at the number of calls for service that we answer as an agency, 231,774 calls for help from our members of the community compared to every other agency. So why should they work so hard? Unfortunately, I got an email last night. As I was leaving about 2 a.m. this morning, I was leaving the scene of a shooting. The email said we had to have another officer that's going to Hamilton County next month. This is the part where we need help, is this right here. Because logically, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to face 2,000 stressful calls, 16,923 priority 1 calls, right? So those are the calls where somebody's life is in danger. It doesn't make sense to work that hard when we can't even pay them competitively. So how many cops should we actually have, right? Where does 509 come from? Did I just kind of pull that out of the air? No, ma'am, I did not. So when you're looking at determining how many cops do you need for a certain community, right? It cannot solely be based on population. It has to be based on a combination of things. One is population. The next largest indicator is violent crime rates. Let me explain why. If you have your house broken into, how many police officers does that take to answer that call, write up the report? 1. If somebody steals your car, 1 officer. If somebody breaks into 10 cars in your neighborhood or an apartment complex, 1 officer. Let's say there's a reunion at a park and there's 4 people shot. How about 20 cops? For hours and hours. Let's say there's a 15-year-old that's shot dead in the streets. You're talking 24 to 36 hours of anywhere from 10 to 15 cops working. So violent crime compared to property crime is a significant dedication of resources. And what I'm here to say is we are darn good at that. We are darn good at focusing on that. But what does that do to us relative to the perception of crime, right? Which largely can be attributed to the presence of disorder and the lack of officer presence. So when you do drive downtown, or you're trying to have dinner outdoors and that muffler goes by, or you're trying to walk down Market Street and you get accosted by maybe a member of the unhoused community that might be somewhat inebriated. When that happens, you don't feel safe. You don't feel safe at all. Well, we've done a really good job at focusing on what creates the most social harm in our community, which is shootings and homicides. There's not a greater crime than taking the life of another human being. And we are really good at that. We've maintained over an 80% clearance rates of all homicides. And we're continuing to see numbers decrease. 53%, this was made last week, but 53% as of last week. As of this week, we're still at 47% down. Last year, we were down even further. And this is compared to last year. Well, all the way back to 2022, we are kicking our own tails with how well we're responding to that. But we don't have the resources to respond to the social disorder. We don't have those resources. Why don't we? Because we're budgeted for the same number of cops that we were budgeted for a quarter century ago. That's why. Now, this is a comparative chart. So in 2014, when Chief Fletcher was here, he and I worked together to kind of create this. And knowing what types of conversations I would be having, I went in and updated it, and I added a violent crime rate, as well as the number of officers, and then the number of officers per capita. That per capita is based on 1,000 people. The crime rate is based on 100,000 people. So when you're comparing how many cops should Chattanooga have compared to everybody else, you look at these two things. You look at the population, and you look at the violent crime rate. Now that violent crime rate, this means that Chattanooga is at 882.75 violent crimes per 100,000 people. When you look at every other department in our region, in this general area, the southeast area, or similarly sized, you look at our rate and above, and you compare that to the number of sworn officers from those individuals, from those other agencies. And you see, where are we? Where do we stand? And if you take an average of that, you take the average of those that are at our level of violent crime, that experience that level of violent crime that we do, you take that average, the number is 2.72 officers per 1,000 people. Chattanooga is at 2.34. That's where we are. If we were to be at 2.72, that would mean we would be assigned 509 sworn police officers. Again, I'm not asking for us to go to 509 officers today. What I'm asking for is an opportunity to get to 477. Getting to 477 is my job. Keeping 477 is where I need y'all's help. Recruiting and culture. There are brighter days ahead. And here's why. Early on, we asked about, Chairwoman, you asked about the HR department. That's something that was an initiative of mine. And that was only done after analyzing where are our shortcomings. And I worked very closely with Mandy on that to say, how can, well, not just Mandy, but Mandy, Kevin, the mayor himself, how can we improve in this area? We did a huge analysis on what that looked like. Well, that led to some structural changes. That led to new positions, a recruiter position, to where we have a full-time HR, just one, that is doing the job of about 10 sworn recruiters. But what that did was it allowed our 3 sworn recruiters to actually go out and start recruiting instead of processing new applicants. This is the result of that. This is the result. This is from March of this year to date. We have 39 slated right now that have either already through the process, like they've passed everything, or they're right at the end of that. We are on track for 45 cadets, potentially 49. I want to be careful with that. but on track for 45 cadets in the September Academy. That will be one of the largest academies that we have had in multiple decades. Multiple decades. This is my job. This is my job. This starts with culture. This starts with leadership. But Chattanooga is also an amazing place to work. It's an amazing place to live. We are better than Knoxville. My opinion. I spent some time there last week. Got to talk with their mayor and their chief. So Knoxville's just under us in their violent crime rate. Just under us. Knoxville on paper, they're budgeted for 416 sworn officers. But in reality, their mayor and city council is allowing them to, by the end of this year, hire up to 460. By the end of next year, they'll be at 500. Well, the other thing they did was, several years ago, they implemented a big bump in pay raise to compete with Tennessee Highway Patrol. So while right now their open source numbers say that they start at about $58,000 a year, which is $10,000 more a year than our officers start at, they're actually closer to 59. But here's the real key. It's 59,000 starting. They have a seniority-based pay plan like we do, or in similar in concept, but they have a guaranteed 4% COLA every single year. So they don't have to go back and do this every single year. They also are in a brand new building. They have a brand new public safety building that's their academy, fire administration, police administration, the whole thing. They have visited us 4 times this year because they're trying to see, how are you doing what you're doing with your numbers? How are you able to address violent crime with such depleted resources? They're working to honestly mimic us. They're trying to build a real-time intelligence center. They're trying to establish a gun team. They were just here last week to look at what we're doing in recruiting. Because even though they're paying higher than us, they got new shiny things, they don't have the city of Chattanooga. They don't have what we have. But they are able to hold on to their cops, and they're about to outpace us in their ability to respond not just to the violent crime that plagues their communities, but also the social disorder that we want to be able to address equally. So I said back in September of last year that I felt the most important thing for us to be able to start recruiting better, to start seeing those results, to try and slow down that loss and attrition, knowing that I don't have control over pay. I don't have control over that. But what I do have control over is my ability to lead, my ability to emulate the type of leadership that our community deserves and that our officers deserve. That started with me. One of the first steps, as you all know, is I created the Chiefs Leadership Council, which helped me select who the other chiefs were. And I have maintained very high expectations across the board. We've created an environment where everyone has a voice. We are leading by example, as evidenced by just being out there, being there, which I'll skip down here. This came from Pastor Reed, one of my first meetings with Pastor Reed. I was very transparent, and I was like, I've been in operations. I've not been anywhere in the forward-facing part of this department to be connecting with the community regularly. My career has been there. How do I bridge that gap? Especially taking over under the circumstances that I was taking over last year. Because I knew there was a gap there. I had to somehow bridge that gap. This was his response. Be there. Be there. Be there in the community. Be there. And that's exactly what we're doing. My expectations and equal accountability has not changed, and it will not change. Inclusivity is extremely important to me as well as everyone that I lead. That is not just the fact that everyone has a voice, but we intentionally seek out input and opinions from our employees. I want to read something real quick to you guys that will speak to this. I debated on whether to do this or not, but I feel like I'll go ahead and err on the side of just reading it to you. This was from a 3-year officer. He sent me this email on July the 9th. Dear Chief Chambers, I wanted to take a moment to sincerely thank you for the personalized note you sent me. Small gestures like that may not seem like much, but to me, they mean a lot. It's the kind of recognition and leadership I truly appreciate. Your consistent efforts to acknowledge both the good and the bad, whether it's through reading our reports or offering direct feedback, genuinely stands out. It shows that you're not just leading from the top, you're involved, and that helps all of us feel like we're part of a single, united team. Coming from a team sport background, I know how important it is to have a strong, clear leader who sets the tone and helps build a culture of trust and accountability. You lead in a way that fosters a team mentality throughout the department and reinforces the strong blue mindset we all talk about. You don't just talk the talk, you lead by example. Your leadership makes a real difference, and I just wanted to let you know how much I respect and appreciate it. It's awkward reading that, but I want you to understand this is not just my perspective. This is what's felt. This is why we've been able to put a tourniquet. But that tourniquet will not last forever because bills have to be paid. Our cops are working too much overtime to fill in the gaps to keep our community safe. So I wanted to talk just briefly about what would we do if we do get raises? What does that look like? I cannot be responsible and come in and go, we want across the board raises for everybody. It's not what we're doing. That's not what we will do. We already sat with our finance manager and leadership to analyze what is the most responsible way to give raises to our cops. The most responsible way is to focus on one, those that have the most disparate salaries compared to our competitors locally. That 93%, that's where the bulk of it will go. Starting salary with cadets, police officers, master police officers, and sergeants. Now again, we cannot create a compression issue. We can't have equal seniority and ranks making more than their supervisors. We've done that once before as a city. We lost a class action lawsuit. We don't want to go down that road again. Phil's going to be like, yes, we don't want to go down that road again. So we will have to make sure that there is some form of a raise up the rest of the chain of command. That's just to address compression. That's not about focusing on a particular rank. It's about this. This is where we're losing our officers. This is what we want to address. I want to say thank you guys for this opportunity, but before I close, I did want to say one thing. I will just, again, be transparent. Taking this job over in last September, I really wasn't super worried about the operations side of the police department. I've had a really good opportunities to have experience in the operational side. So, truthfully, this is what I was worried about. This was what gave me some anxiety, was working with elected officials, right? Never done it before, you know. By and large, we're all strangers. You guys hadn't really dealt with me because I haven't been the forward face of the department ever. This is what gave me angst. Over these last 10 months, what I've come to know is we are all cut from the same cloth. We all want the same thing. We want our community members to be safe and feel safe. That's exactly what we want. I have been committed and will continue to be committed to upholding my end of the bargain with culture, servant leadership, being there for our community. And I've demonstrated that, and I will continue to. And so will every single leader in my department. You all are equally committed to keeping our community safe. This is where we need your help. This is where we need you all to do hard things. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chief.
Any other questions? I guess we'll open for questions.
Yes, we're open for questions. Thank you for such a compassionate argument at the end. Really good closing argument you had there.
Like a good lawyer.
Well, I'm like, oh,
I wanted to
okay.
clap. I didn't want to.
You can. And I'm just going to sit down.
Wow, that was good presentation. And so with that, we'll open up for questions. Okay, we got Councilman Byrd, Madam Chair Hill. Anyone else, Clark? Cody, did you have your hand up?
No, I was.
Okay, I was like, don't got my last second. Chair,
I've got
Councilman Henderson. I'm
Not
sorry.
necessarily a question for him,
Okay.
but I do have a question.
Okay. All right. So we got Councilwoman Burrs, Madam Chair Hill, Councilman Clark, Councilman Henderson. Anyone else at the moment? All right. We'll start with Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you, Chief Chambers. Thank you for your passion. I think it's important, and just for the record, I hope for the people that are streaming this today and that we share this link with all of our constituents, because I think it's so important for people to hear from you to help back up whatever decision we might have to make. So I'm saying it to you, but I'm also saying it to the camera that please, folks, share this information with your neighbors, and please watch and ask other people to watch. Okay. I have a couple of questions. You mentioned the overtime hours per year. When, and maybe this is for you, and maybe it's for Kevin as well. I think it'd be interesting to see if those overtime hours went away, the funding that goes into those overtime hours in a perfect world, how that would be able to fund kind of what we're talking about. Does that make sense? If you didn't have to have those overtime hours because you don't have enough officers, I mean, I'm assuming it's because you don't have enough officers.
Yes.
You're asking officers to fill that gap.
There's always going to be overtime.
Okay.
Right? So when I mentioned when a homicide happens and we have 10 to 15 officers that respond in.
Is that where
That's-
most of this is?
It's not necessarily a most.
Okay.
It's going to be divided out between court.
Okay.
It's going to be late calls, major events like homicides, shootings, and things like that. So there are an array of situations where that would apply.
Okay.
I think I understand what you're asking as far as if we filled the 477, would we see the overall overtime go down? I think it's possible, but by how much, I don't know.
Okay, that was gonna be my question. Do you have a sense of what that might be, so we could look at that financially? Okay, and maybe there's no way to know that right now.
Not at this time.
Okay.
But I think it's important to draw the distinction here that, yes, there's a cost with overtime, but what he's talking about is the psychological cost on officers, right?
Okay.
So, because, overtime requirements on a given cycle, a month, a quarter, is X.
Yep.
It's a function of, well, how many officers do we have to go meet that need? And because we don't have enough right now, each individual officer is having to bear a disproportionate burden of that overtime.
And it's a physical strain, I understand there's a
Yeah.
physical strain, not
Yeah.
just a
And
financial
mental.
strain,
Mhm.
yeah, and mental, yeah. Okay. When you had your conversations with Knoxville, did the conversation turn, what part of the conversation may have been financial, like, how were they able to fund?
I didn't go into those
Okay.
details.
Okay.
We were there as guests, and it was for a different function, so I took the opportunity to kind of ask about. I knew what open source said their starting salary was. I knew what open source said that their actual budgeted numbers were. I wanted to find out, what are you really doing with that, and what did that look like? And that's when they just kind of opened up about, here's where we're really going. And so I didn't get into, that type of budgetary type questions.
I can tell you how.
Yeah.
Their ordinance requires that there be an increase in compensation as part of the annual budget cycle, and that they pass a millage commensurate with that cost.
Okay.
So they're not having these conversations in the same way that we are, because they had them once. They made one good decision way upstream, and it prevented a lot of difficult decisions downstream.
So they're not having to do this every year, it's pretty much set now?
Right.
So the citizens understand that this may happen on
Yep.
any given year, depending on where we are budget-wise?
Yep.
Okay.
And we could do the same thing if we wanted to.
That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman Burrs. Madam Chair Hill.
Okay. I do think leadership is critical, and we have seen in other quasi-agencies in the city, when we've got the right leader, things can just exponentially improve. Quality of life, there's many such success stories. I'm pleased to see attrition going down. I want to go kind of pretty far back into some weeds. The 2% remain, I get a little prickly when people are like, yeah, but this money and this money and this money and this money and this money isn't even ours. Just because all of those operations are part of health and safety, right? As part of the work that the police department does. So it's not money that doesn't go to policing. It's money that goes toward the total package. But the other expenses item, the 760 to cover risk management, I would say that a good 80% of the attorney-client meetings we have are about accidents from our police, right? Where they're getting in an accident, we're being sued, we're paying damages. Probably more than $760K a year goes out the door in settlements, which is part of the work. I get that. But I will say, I'm encouraged by two things when I think about that. Number one, a more competitive class for our training, because I do think the more folks you've got that want to be in it, the better your applicant, the better the ones that make it into academy are going to be, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I need every police officer to be really good at defensive driving, and I need them not to hit things.
Yes.
Right?
I do too.
I need them not to be reckless,
Yes.
right? You do too. So that kind of high caliber of cadet added to this commitment to tremendous levels of training. So those two things go hand in hand, and my hope would be that over time, even as we grow, in the police department in particular, but citywide, that risk management becomes something that we're able to reduce the expenses of things like that just because of human error that is made. Okay, so.
Before you, can I speak to that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so one of the things you may not realize is, and also I know some of this you don't know, so I keep track of the officer-involved crashes.
Uh-huh.
We are actually down in both at-fault and not-at-fault crashes this year.
Good.
Compared to the last 10 years.
Great.
Okay? What we don't get is, we don't get an offset to that number when the officer is not at fault. So let's say the officer is not at fault, just like last night.
Mm-hmm.
Right? A member of our community crossed the center line, hit a police officer head on. A police officer and a ride-along chaplain were injured. Whatever insurance is recouped out of that does not offset into this account.
Mm-hmm.
We don't get those dollars
True.
to offset that. So when we have more at-fault crashes, when we have more not-at-fault crashes, like we're in right now, we don't see a difference in that dollar. We don't see a difference in any dollars. Not in the vehicle dollars, none. We get $0 when there's an insurance claim. Zero. That
Okay.
offsets our budget.
Okay, that's interesting to know. Okay, next question. We have had this double-digit decrease in shootings, murder rates. Everybody's thrilled. That is in part because of the police work that's being done, and our clear rate is absolutely that. But then also, the mayor has had a major public health initiative related to the 423 chain breakers and community haven. What is your assessment of how that work has impacted the reduction in violent crime?
I believe that it is a holistic approach. That was the mayor's concept, and I absolutely believe that every initiative has a role to play in that. So we understand statistics, you can't prove a negative, right? Especially causation to a negative. But what we can do is we can look at specific incidents, okay? We can look at the first homicide that occurred when I was appointed chief. It was in October of last year. It was a 16-year-old who got off the bus from Brainerd High School and was gunned down in the middle of the street, actually running for his life. That young man was a member of a gang. So were the individuals that were going after him. We saw zero retaliatory violence after that shooting. We should have seen a lot. So that's just one case in point. I'll use another one. Nightfall.
Where we should have seen it.
We should have seen it.
Why we didn't see it was why? Because
The why was because the chain breakers got involved early on.
Okay.
They got involved early on, making phone calls, making contact with those. They have the ability in relationships to be able to have conversations and gain trust with the individuals that we cannot, because our job is not necessarily to gain the trust of shooters. Our job is to hold them accountable. You need someone else that can do that, and that is the role that they play. So I would use that as a case in point. Another one would be Nightfall. So early on in Nightfall, I believe it was the first or second weekend of last year's Nightfall, not this year, but last year. And we saw issues with juveniles. We expected it. We had juveniles come in, they tried to knock over one of the food trucks and things like that. The very next night, and then every night since, to include this year, the chain breakers were there. And we have had zero incidents like that since. So those are some of the examples that personally I look at as the chief and go, okay, while you can't prove 100% causation, you can say, this seems to correlate, right? We've seen a reduction. We've seen instances where there's a lack of retaliatory violence. And we know for sure that the chain breakers have been involved in that. What's the reason, right? You can't point to a specific. It looks like it is the overall holistic approach that the mayor's office as well as the police department has taken to that.
Okay, and so both of those examples were chain breakers. Kevin, will you get us a line item on what the chain breakers cost is annually, please? And then Community Haven is another piece. Can you talk to us about your experience and what impact that has had?
Before you jump in, can I just say I will do that, but I think it's important to note that the chain breakers were originally funded through ARPA dollars, but we have since, because we've demonstrated the efficacy of the program, we've been able to go out and capture US DOJ funding.
For the chain breakers?
For the chain
right,
breakers,
right.
yeah.
Okay,
And so I
yeah,
think
so
that's
I'd
it.
like to know what that number
for sure.
is. Okay.
So I actually went and met one-on-one with Brother Kevin Muhammad to get an idea of what Community Haven is and does. Because at surface, it looks like they ride around in, previously decommissioned police cars, and that's pretty much all they do. Well, I got a tour of their facility, and if you haven't, I would recommend you go take a look, right? If you really want to see how these dollars are spent. It's a lot more than just that. There's a tremendous amount of outreach that goes on there. For instance, tomorrow, they're hosting from 12 to 3, I believe it is. They're hosting a backpack and clothing giveaway for back to school. They've partnered with a 501c3 that's helping donate a bunch of backpacks and clothes for kids for the community. And it's not just that community, as well as they bring kids and families from all over. And they've asked us to kind of, hey, will you help us? Because there's no parking on theirs, or very limited parking on their lot. So people will park in the streets, and they just don't want it to become a public safety issue. So we're going to make sure that we keep traffic flow open, but at the same time, let these kids go take advantage of those gifts. They deserve it. They absolutely need it, as well as they're providing that opportunity. Another thing is he's reached out. He's been able to hire, like Brother Kevin's been able to hire multiple young men that are out of school that would otherwise be unemployed, and to bring them on the property to do different works, whether it's yard work or maintenance work or something like that, to be able to employ them. And he's done that. He's reached out to not just within their area, but then also multiple districts outside of that, to where it's definitely become more of an outreach program than it is just like a patrol function. I think there might have been some confusion also as to like what their true role is. Their role is the same as all of ours. Their goal is to decrease violence within the areas that they're driving around. So when they see an argument occurring on the front yard, they get out and try to, hey, let's stop this before we have to call the police. So I will liken it to this. I've heard different people talk about where communities will seem to either be held hostage by certain activity or a criminal element, or some communities will stand up against that, right? They will say, not in my neighborhood. That's what Brother Kevin Muhammad is doing for that neighborhood, right? Is he has stood up and said, not in this neighborhood. We want to try and reduce the violence by not letting things escalate, by offering outreach opportunities. Now, I know it sounds like this is a big sales pitch. I'm just trying to explain like what I've witnessed firsthand with my own 2 eyes and my understanding. What I wish is, and also understanding that this initiative was started without any funding from the city whatsoever, and it was proved to be effective. Well, I wish other communities would do the exact same thing. I wish they would start their own version of this on their own dime and prove the efficacy of it, and then see what that looks like for that community. That's what I wish, that other communities would stand up and go, not in my community, not in my neighborhood, and we're going to be proactive in trying to prevent that. I think that would serve everyone in the Chattanooga area.
Yeah, when we all do a little.
Yes, ma'am.
It all adds up. On the same, I'm looking at a slide of the why I don't see cops in my area about the overtime. I want to make sure I understand 26.2 overtime hours per day on average. Is that total across the department?
That's, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that many out, okay. How does that currently impact our officers' salaries? Because I get that there's a mental, physical toll of working additional hours, but on the other side, do you think that we have officers that are supplementing their pay with overtime hours, or who have grown accustomed to the pay level that includes overtime hours,
So I would say our officers have supplemented their pay ever since I've been a copier.
right?
Whether that's working extra jobs or working overtime. They are doing those things. Some are not great with money, just like all humans are. Some do really well, some don't. So some officers may be dependent on working extra jobs or overtime. If the salary is increased, there's a less need, right, for having to work the extra overtime or the extra jobs.
So sounds like you don't anticipate a tsunami of concern around, hey, I was living on overtime. Or
I do not
I was
anticipate.
okay, all right.
And you know, to that end, right, officers are equally concerned about their own health and well-being. You know, we have dedicated a lieutenant position, as well as, you know, I think it's a $250,000 grant for our own mental health professional that we have seen a 24% increase in usage of just this year, right? Our officers want to be well. They want to spend time with their family. And this would give us an opportunity to help them balance that out. What happens, and what's happened historically, is we'll do this, and we'll give a one-time raise, just like we did in 2021. If there's no follow-up with that, we're right back here in 5 years. So every 5 years, we're doing this.
Yep.
And that's where the officers, they know if we don't get this today, then I've got to go somewhere else. If we do get this today, it's going to be good for a while, but then I'm going to have to start working overtime, and I'm going to have to start working extra jobs if the overtime's not available in order to supplement that, because cost of living is going to go up, but my pay is not commensurate.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
Yes, ma'am.
And, you know, as we've thought, I said to my family today, oh my goodness, we're still working on this budget. And, you know, Councilman Henderson and I had both argued strongly for let's do this once, but we're doing it twice, and that's fine. I think that we're all ready, you know, to be making decisions, but I find it unfortunate that it has been a budgeting tactic over many, many years to separate sworn pay from our general employee pay. That, to me, just doesn't make a lot of sense when everybody is vital to the work. Question about why work so hard on that slide. I'd like to understand the retirement benefit for the other organizations. I know we have our own fire and police pension fund. Collegedale through Saudi Daisy and Tennessee Highway Patrol, what is their retirement benefit?
I know I can speak because I did work for Red Bank for a couple of years, so I know they have the standard state retirement. The other agencies may as well. I do not know about Tennessee Highway Patrol or Hamilton County. I don't know what their retirements look like.
Okay, so other organizations participate in a different fiscal liability structure related to pension than we are participating in.
I do not know what, like Highway Patrol. I don't know if they have a pension or if they have a different type of retirement. I have no idea what theirs is. I do believe the other agencies in Hamilton County, yes ma'am, that would be correct.
Okay. It's a significant liability within our budget, and the liability grows. You know, we did a true up, and there's a lot to consider with that.
Yes ma'am.
Okay, on the next slide, where you were doing the average to determine what would be considered an appropriate number, arguably a best practice for the number of police. So I was a little confused by the coloring and what we were averaging. So were you averaging, I put a box around Fayetteville through Savannah as violent crime rates that are in tracking with ours? Are those the ones you averaged?
So this is put in order
Right.
from highest violent crime rate to lowest. The highlighted ones are all of those with a higher rate than the city of Chattanooga. That's the highlighted yellows.
Uh-huh.
Then Chattanooga's is gray, everyone else is lower than. And this column here demonstrates how high or low it is. So that's.
But to get to the 2 point,
Yes. So what that is,
7.2.
yes, ma'am. So looking at the hierarchy here, right, of the most violent cities, for lack of a better word, to where we are, and the number of sworn per capita is right here. So this is their total
Right.
number of sworn. This is open sourced, right? So if there's been budget changes or whatever, it will not be reflected here. But this is the open sourced number of budgeted sworn based on 1,000 or per 1,000 residents, right? So the population, number of sworn, that's where you get these numbers here. So this 2.72 is all of these averaged is 2.72.
Oh, not just related to, because I thought you were saying that the violent crime requires more. and
Yes.
So we
Yes,
would be
ma'am.
looking at our rate of violent crime
Yes,
to
ma'am.
identify what our ratio would be. So why would we include these that have much higher violent crime in determining our ratio?
Well, that's what you're comparing to. You comparing Chattanooga, right, at 8.822 with Hoover, Alabama, with a 0.77. That's not a true comparison.
Right, so I haven't done the math. My question is, when you get to for CPD to be at 2.72, are you averaging the communities that have around the same amount of violent crime as we do? So Fayetteville, North Carolina is 886, and Savannah, Georgia is 825. So like, I've drawn a box around that, and I would think that would be comparatively what we would be looking at. It sounds like you're averaging the entire list of officer per capita.
I'm averaging those that are either at our violent crime rate or above. That's what I'm averaging.
Why are you including or above?
Because we talked about the drain on resources of violent crimes. So why would I compare below versus above? Like, do we want to have the resources to address violent crime adequately and maintain the reduction we've seen, and at the same time be able to address the social harm that occurs from the presence of disorder? So that's these are the other cities, especially when you look at Birmingham, Alabama. They have less than 10,000 more residents than we do. And you look at the violent crime rate there, significantly higher than ours. Well, you also look at the number of officers that they have, significantly higher. Well, the reason they have to have that many cops is because of how violent it is. All I was doing was demonstrating was, if we want to be comparable in addressing the violent crime that occurs in our city effectively and have the resources to address the social harm that's occurring outside of violent crime, then these are our comparable cities, not these down here. Because they do not have the same drain on resources that we do based on their violent crime rates.
Well, and I wasn't suggesting that we would. I was suggesting we would compare ourselves to the ones that have the same violent crime numbers, very similar violent crime numbers. Which is why I was pointing out Savannah, Georgia through Fayetteville, North Carolina, because they are all in the 800 range. But I get it. You're we're going to estimate high on that. That's fine.
I'll just say this, remember, I'm not asking for 509.
Right.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm not even asking for us to go to 500 where we were in 2021. I'm not asking for that. What I'm asking for is the opportunity to get to 477 and stay there.
Yeah.
That is all I'm asking
Right.
for.
I hear you.
Yes,
I
think doing the math, it's really comparable even to those cities you're talking about.
Is that, I haven't done the math yet. I will say for council, I think that we should study absolutely what Knoxville has done with regard to formalizing a commitment to pay for our sworn officers. That said, I think we also need to be looking at what our pay commitments are to our staff as well, all of our general staff as well. Now, that said, it also, like, tying that to a millage rate adjustment makes sense, as opposed to putting that burden on ourselves and then trying to cut every time, because that, it's just not feasible over the long term. And I've seen it as a school board member. It does not deliver a highly functioning organization to try to always cut to the bone on everything. That is all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. And I did want to circle back to a statement you made regarding we've done sworn one year, we've done non-sworn another year, and the ultimate goal of this year is to, Kevin?
Is to have the adequate resources to do both, because those decisions have been we've been limited by the scarcest resource, which is money. And so instead of doing a little bit over here and a little bit over there, we have decided to stick with increases on the civilian side. And so this discussion, the premise of it is, okay, how do we make up for what we haven't been doing on the sworn side? And how do we prevent ourselves, our future selves, from having to do this again and again and again, to your point?
And when are we gonna get the number? What's the ask? When do we get the official ask?
Yeah, so I mentioned it last week. I think that Councilman Harvey asked me what the target was.
Well, yeah,
so-
we have that, but we don't have like the full presentation idea of here's how this.
Oh, for the proposal?
Is it next week?
Yeah, it's next week. I think it's not finalized. We've been having these conversations with you guys and working through this process toward next week, where we're going to present a proposal of what we think we should do. Is that what you're asking?
Well, so next week, we are structured in such a way that you expect in the first half of the day, the council to bring you a solution, solution ideas. And that you are then going to tell us what your solution is in the afternoon. And yet we still have not a formal concept of what we are working toward. Like we have okay, I know it's not out of the air, and yet we have not seen all the documentation to say, we need $17 million to do for fire and police. Like we still haven't had that.
Okay, and are you talking about a justification as to why the number is 17?
To understand if we invest this much, then it does this with the pay. If we invest this much, it does this with the pay.
Oh, I see. Okay, we can furnish that for you.
I mean, 17 gets us where, 12 gets us where,
Absolutely, gotcha.
80 million gets us where.
That's good, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
No,
80
we
million.
saw that number.
Can we go ahead and settle on that? Is that-
When I
Nice
saw that, when I
try.
saw that hold the millage rate, I thought that
I'll
just
sign
all I
on
saw was waste. I thought if this government had $80 million suddenly annually a year, the waste would be ridiculous, in my opinion. So it's not the way we go. But
So thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to, because I know that was a conversation we've had in our
Appreciate you
separate
bringing
budget meetings. We want to get to the point where we come into FY26 and we're not having these amendments. We're not
That'd be
having
great.
sworn, non-sworn. We're coming in one time to get it done and move on.
our present to future
Yes.
leaders.
Yeah, so, who I got? Councilman Clark, followed by Councilman Henderson and Harvey.
I think Councilman Harvey had a particular follow-up question to that.
Oh, to the.
And then I've got to cut out to a
Oh.
meeting because you guys have disproportionately asked a lot of questions.
Imagine.
So I'll let him, because I think it's relative to what they're saying. I need to
Do you still have
I gotta
a
take a break.
question? Oh, do you
I
still
do, I
have
have
a
a list of questions,
Oh, okay.
but
All right.
I'll go to Councilman Harvey. I have to cut out.
Explain why you're not going to ask a question.
Okay. So if you did have your druthers, what would the number look like for a salary for a cadet and an officer? So are we wanting to match Hamilton County? Are we? What,
Yeah, thank you for asking this question.
What's the
While
space
he's-
race?
While he's pulling the number.
what is the number?
I do think that it's important that we all recognize, and Chief, I'd like for you to speak to this in a little bit more detail. We are never going to be able to keep up with an arms race, right? Because of the disproportionate expectation and workload on Chattanooga Fire and Police, because we're the seat of the county, right? We're the biggest.
Right.
So we will always have the most responsibility. And so we won't be able to, year after year, try to keep pace. However, and this is where kind of the culture and the leadership piece comes in, because if we can create an environment that people want to come be a part of because of what's happening in these agencies, which we are doing in both fire and police, and be in the ballpark, you know what I mean? Then our competitive advantage is the non-compensation element of working for the city of Chattanooga.
So this is
So
where.
what's the number?
To answer that question, so this is what I did, right? So forgive me for the rudimentary visuals here. This is just like basic spreadsheet analysis, right? So this is Huntsville, Johnson City, THP, Nashville, Raleigh, Red Bank, East Ridge, Saudi Daisy, Hamilton County, Signal Mountain, College Dale, and Knoxville. This is their cadets. As you see, some of these agencies don't, at least if they do have cadet starting pay, they don't advertise it. But this is cadet starting pay with an average of $58,140. And this is the officer starting pay, right? This is the focus right here. This is where we want to focus. Now, Chattanooga starts their officers out at $45,780 as a cadet. And then when they graduate the academy and become actually sworn, it goes up to $48,198. When you look at these, the bold are all inside Hamilton County. They operate with inside Hamilton County. $58,221 starting is the average. That's the average. We are 21% or $10,000 below the average for our starting.
But it's not the average of the bold, it's the average of everything.
That's correct. It's the average of everyone. These, when you look at Huntsville, Johnson City, Raleigh, comparable sized cities when it comes to their population and growth. So that's what we're looking at. And looking at Hamilton County, they received, this may not be 100% accurate, but they received raises for FY26. We don't have that. This was open sourced as well. It could be as high as $56,000. I can tell you that Hamilton County Park Rangers, they make $52,000 a year. They start off $4,000 above what our police officers make at $52,000. That's what they start off as, Park Ranger. So we're significantly lower. Again, Knoxville, this was open source. Their chief told me that they're about $1,000 over this a year. And they also get the 4% COLA every single year built in addition to their seniority-based pay plan. That's in addition to, not in place of. So you're talking about a number for us to be competitive. To me, that looks like the number. Now, that's competitive for now.
58.
58 is the competitive number for now, starting. That keeps us in that ballpark. If it stops there, ladies and gentlemen, we're right back here in a couple of years. That's where this part becomes ever important. If we can get to that point to where we're competitive on that average mark, and then we are able to apply something to that effect in addition to our pay plan, we remain competitive, honestly, in perpetuity, if we make that step.
Councilman Harvey, any more questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close out with Councilman Henderson, and then we'll recess.
I
I'll
have
give
a
you
quick
time.
question as well.
Okay.
I promise it's quick.
I got like 50 questions.
Go ahead.
Okay, Councilman Henderson, followed by Councilwoman Byrd.
Chief, just in the event that you were wondering if your presence at city council meetings matters, let me tell you it does. I, for one, have appreciated being there every meeting. I'm sure everybody else does too. For you to take your time and come to those meetings means a lot. I think, Chief, this is for you. I would like a adjusted for inflation number of what, in Y2K, you seem to indicate that seemed to be a great year or whatever, as far as having a waiting list for people wanting to get on CPD. What was that officer pay in Y2K, and then what would that look like adjusted for inflation today?
Okay.
I guess is what I'm asking.
Interesting question.
And then the chief, you shared with me some numbers, and I like Chairwoman Hill's request for sort of hard presentation or hard numbers. We've just briefly talked about, we thought the pay increases needed, we needed 9 million for CPD and 11 for fire department. Is the 58,000 gets us to the 9 million? Does the 9 million?
That's right.
Does the 9 million get us to the 58,000?
It does, right, Chief?
It does based on like the plan, right, to where we have a tiered percentage.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's,
It gets.
but that request, okay.
But I want to remind you, and I called you on the phone because you weren't here last week, but I said at this table that in the time from when we were having conversations around the budget and I anchored against 20 and today, I have had subsequent conversations with the fire department and their number is 14 million relative to what I was doing math on at 11 million, which means that the target number went from 20 to 23 million. Backing out the 5 puts us at 17 and change.
And just a side note, Chairwoman, the audio, when you listen to this online, is terrible. When I tried to listen last week, and when Councilwoman Burrs was talking to the audience out there, I'm like, you know, wonder if they can even hear.
It
So
was bad.
one of the
Yeah,
things
I
I
listened to it
noticed
too.
last week listening online is the audio was terrible. Some people pick up better than others, but I think we probably need to look at maybe dropping some microphones down from the ceiling at different places so that we can pick up everybody.
I noticed that as well.
Especially
The
if there's any.
volume's low, so even if you
Yeah.
take your volume up to
Yeah.
the highest level, it's still too low.
So
That's what I
especially if
experienced.
somebody around the room made a comment, unless somebody at the table repeated it, you couldn't hear it at all.
Okay.
So I think we need to address that and
So Councilman Henderson, you'll add that cost to the budget amendment?
I expect that to come out
We have that in a
of,
line item.
We sure do. And then, Councilman Henderson, is that it? Okay. Councilwoman Burrs?
Quick question. The rent that you pay to the FJC, where would you go if you weren't there?
We bring it back to the service center.
You would? Okay.
I don't want to do that, just so you know.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of value having them there.
I think so too.
I would not bat an eye at paying $1 versus 43,000 though. That wouldn't bother me one bit.
Well, and one other, since that question went so quick, one quick other question. Why did you pick the Huntsville, Johnson City, the other cities outside
I
of
looked at
our area?
populations.
Okay, thank you.
Huntsville's pretty close to ours. Now,
Okay.
violent crime rate's not really comparable, just looked at the overall and size of the departments.
Okay,
Those are
thank
reasons. We can take those out, that's not a problem, because this right here is our biggest competitor, and then you look at Nashville and Knoxville. Those are our biggest competitors outside of Hamilton County.
Okay.
Obviously, Hamilton County and the agencies therein are the largest competitor. We've lost more officers to THP in Hamilton County than any other jurisdiction. So,
Thank you.
Yes.
That's good information. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Burrs and Councilman Elliott. Thank you for joining us. You said you have a brief question.
I got 5.
Brief one.
I'm playing.
We'll
Quick question. I may have missed this.
You said that up. You did.
I was listening. So,
Could you hear?
if we weren't recording, expletives might be good. But in all seriousness, when it comes to police and fire pay, are we bringing them to equal pay bands, or is there still going to be a gap?
So I think that if we do, 14 million for fire, it brings them into parity. Is that right?
It gets better.
It's like, it's really, really close at that point. If we do 11, so if we do 9 and 11, then that gap is a little bit wider.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But I understand crystal clear, you guys want to see all that, and I will make sure that you do, and I'll do that ASAP.
Okay.
What's really, really close? What's a number that's really, really close difference in?
I can speak to our cadet pay when we hire a recruit, and it's no shade to Chief Chambers, he pays his new people 48,000, right?
I think it's 45.7.
45.7, ours start at 42, and then.
So the 17 would bring you where? Between that 43 to 40?
It would raise our base pay up into the 50, I don't know the exact number, but it would put us in the 50s.
Okay.
So probably a few $1,000s. I will
A
get
few,
the
that's what, how many thousand? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Okay. If it's just a small enough difference, I'm sorry, I'm all out of
Sneaking in
order. I
questions. All
know.
right.
I know, but I've been quiet all
I know you
morning,
have.
so.
Get on the
So
mail.
it's just a
Go ahead,
small
Councilwoman.
enough, difference that we could actually, throw that wrecking ball out there and knock it out. So it's not a really big
Yep.
gap, okay.
Hey, Kevin, I have a more true number
Okay.
on that.
Thank you.
The 14 million is an 18% increase to firefighter, which would put us at 55,497.
55,497.
Yep.
And then The 9 would get us to
right around the 58 range.
58, right?
Mhm.
So we're $4,000 difference.
Okay, for police.
That's the starting officer pay. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, indeed.
All right, so I think we've rounded out our questions. And just to follow up from last week, Kevin is working on the questions we had from last week, just to brief us on that, and he'll send us an email in the.
Yeah, and we put together a follow-up slide deck that addresses all the questions. We were working on just one last slide. I think it'll be done by the time we reconvene. I'll share it out and mention that in the second session, Chair.
Okay, all right, thank you so much, council, for this, CPD budget, also, Marty Haynes, if you can hear, thank him for coming as well. We'll recess until roughly 12:20, and then come back here, after that recess. All right, thank y'all so much.